And I'm refurbishment lead for the National Energy Foundation. We're a charitable organisation established in 1988 with the remit of helping people to improve energy use in buildings. I'm pleased on behalf of the Buildings Action Group to share with you a case study to do with domestic retrofitting of properties, and this is NEF's Super Homes initiative. This initiative culminated in 222 homes up and down the country being retrofitted to a deep or an advanced standard. Here, the homeowners deployed a package of energy efficiency measures and renewable energy technologies tailored to their home and their needs. And as a result of this was able to drastically slash their household carbon dioxide emissions, the main greenhouse gas, and also to generally significantly reduce their running costs each year. And perhaps most importantly, to improve their health, comfort and enjoyment of their homes. What was really powerful about super homes was that the owners would open them up to the public periodically, and people really enjoyed the peer-to-peer learning and getting trusted, honest advice and finding out what really retrofitting a home involves. NEF collected data that shows that 1 in 4 visitors to a super home actually went on to spend £5,000 or more on energy efficiency improvements in their own home. So this peer-to-peer learning was very powerful indeed. The town of Petersfield actually had 3 super homes, my own home being the first one of these, which I retrofitted back in 2009. And I've been absolutely thrilled and very pleased with the improvements since I retrofitted the property. I'm speaking to you from that property now. I don't want to sell it. I'm enjoying living here. I'm pleased to say that earlier this year, NEF relaunched its Super Homes network and also a new Super Homes rating scheme. And the most exciting news is that working with Petersfield Climate Action Network, we've been able to secure funding from the Energy Redress Scheme to help homeowners in Petersfield and the surrounding villages retrofit their homes so that they can obtain the benefits of retrofitting. We're going to be supporting 150 homeowners to have a whole house retrofit plan done, which is the start of their journey, so we can tell them what are the right options for their retrofit project. We're hoping to have at least 25 super home show homes where we'll carry out video fly-throughs as well so that others can benefit from the learning. And we're also building a supply chain to service the growing retrofit market in the area, and that will see professionals trained and new contractors accredited to the government's Trustmark scheme. So if you want to find out more, please head to Petersfield Climate Action Network website or visit www.superhomes.org.uk. Good luck with your retrofit project. The benefits are really worth it. Thank you.
Junior School. We have our Eco Schools team flag. I'm on letter picking duty, and today we're picking up recycle Christmas. We grow fruits and vegetables and what's left over food. Turn off lights when we're not in the classroom. Students are all ride our bikes to school.
We recycle paper.
Recycle our used pens. We are learning about deforestation and endangered species.
We recycle batteries. We reuse clothes and shoes.
We are trying to protect our beautiful Earth.
Climate change is one of ABRI's 7 strategic priorities, and it's really central to our values and purpose as one of the region's largest housing providers. In 2018, we completed Quebec Park in Whitehall and Borden, which at the time was one of the first government-sponsored eco-towns. So all 100 homes are built to zero carbon standards, and the whole town is centred around sustainability. So reliance on cars has been reduced with improved public transport. As well as providing zero carbon homes, we've made sure that the town benefited from the development's community and health focus. So we've seen Cafe 1759 become a real hub of activity, including initiatives such as social prescribing pilot schemes, the Food Academy and health drop-ins. We really recognise the need to take a holistic approach to sustainability, and that means focusing on both the built environment but also the broader behavioural and lifestyle changes that decarbonisation requires. So we've launched our Carbon Academy, which will provide that all of our colleagues will receive carbon literacy training over a 2-year period. And in line with our retrofit pilots we're looking to roll out later this year, we're really looking at how we can use carbon literacy to really engage our customers and communities on the retrofit agenda. We've also teamed up with a company called My Balance to give our colleagues access to an app that can measure their carbon footprint and really suggest ways to improve it. So through the app, we're really supporting colleagues to think about the impact that lifestyle, energy, food and transportation has, and really drive more ambitious targets to reduce their carbon footprint. In the longer term, we'll be looking to roll the app out to customers, really encouraging lower carbon choices within our communities and really driving forwards the behavioural change agenda.
My name is Paula Langley and I am the co-founder of Alton Community Bus and East Hampshire District Councillor for Alton Eastbrook. The idea of a community bus first came about with Community First and the Eastbrook and Wootties Residents Association when Stagecoach cut the service that ran around those estates, which meant they couldn't get into town for shops, services, events, particularly at weekends. The very first bus was run for the Yuletide Festival in 2018. I'd got a bit impatient after our first meeting was in June of that year, and so I took a last-minute minibus test, hired a bus and drove a bus for the festival. We had over 60 passengers that day, including 3 generations of the same family, one of them in a wheelchair, and he hadn't been out for over a year since having a stroke. Seeing the joy on that family's face and seeing all of the other residents going into town, happily enjoying that event, made me realise just how important this bus was going to be. At first we used the Community First buses based in Borden, but we realised that that counteracted one of the aims of community transport, which is to reduce emissions. After getting the project up and running, the Eastbrook and Wootties Residents Association decided to bow out, and that provided the perfect opportunity for me and my husband and fellow councillor Gideon Christophily to set up a not-for-profit charitable business called the Alton Community Bus. To run the bus, we rely on donations and sponsorship from businesses and local councillors. The leader of East Hampshire District Council, Councillor Millard, has been really supportive of this project, alongside other businesses like Martin Grant Homes, Specsavers, Bookers and Bolton Solicitors, and many other local businesses. As a Labour councillor, it was always really important to me that we paid our bus driver. This used to be a paid job, and we didn't think that it was a job that should be relied upon for volunteers to fill. I do volunteer occasionally still, when Anton, our amazing driver, isn't available, and we do have other volunteers that also cover for holidays. The Alton Community Centre hire us their bus at a very reasonable rate, and although we love it, it has seen better days. What we really need, what the community of Alton needs, is a new bus, and imagine if that could be an electric bus. If you have a spare £90,000 or an electric bus you don't want hanging around, do let me know. I only had to drive the bus once and meet the passengers and hear their stories to realise how important community transport is. Not just to help save the environment by stopping people from using their cars, but for people who don't have cars, so that they can access their community services and events and shops. Otherwise, they would be totally isolated. We're facing a climate emergency. With more and more housing estates being built around our towns, it's absolutely vital that we invest in community transport to ensure that people aren't making those short journeys into town by car. My amazing father, who is my inspiration, for one of his jobs during his very interesting lifetime, drove a route master bus in London. I also have fond memories as a child of jumping on a bus and going anywhere, it being really affordable, being able to travel with your friends into town, to the park, wherever it was you needed to go. You could say buses are in my blood, but I think they are an absolutely vital part of any community. If you would like to join us on the community bus one day, speak to residents, or just take a ride into town, then do let me know. There are leaflets on the Alton Community Cupboards table which give you the timetable and the route. We'd love to see you there, especially if you've got that spare electric bus we can have.
"9 years to reverse climate change. Your moment is now. Our planet is calling for courageous and brave leaders to start now. Be the leader your community needs. Make highly visible and authentic changes and lead through action." Here at the Sustainability Centre, we enable people to act on climate change in practical ways that really make a difference. We're an authentic model of sustainability, walking our talk and sharing what we know. We've been rewilding and retrofitting 55 acres of former Ministry of Defence land and buildings over the past 25 years to show what is possible. We run and host outdoor learning for people of all ages, welcoming over 3,000 school pupils every year and over 30,000 visitors with our immersive and memorable approach to education. We work in partnership with others locally, regionally, nationally and internationally to achieve shared goals and ambitions for a better future. A sustainable future is achievable, important and urgently needed. And it's a practical task to be achieved, not just a topic for discussion. And we believe it's time for community, industry and government leaders to make meaningful actions and lead by example. The time to act is always now. We will support leaders to be brave and make meaningful changes that will halt climate change. To take an honest and practical look at your organisations and stop all practices that don't support a truly sustainable future. Ask yourself 3 questions. Am I using the power and influence that I have to make the changes we need? What do I need to be bolder in this? What will I be able to say to my children and my grandchildren about what I did to halt the climate emergency? Be bold and act now. If you want support or ideas or practical help, then reach out to us here at the Sustainability Centre. Our planet is calling for courageous and brave leaders. We have 9 years to reverse climate change. 9 years to make a difference. You have 9 years. We have 9 years left to make this happen.
is dying. That's right, dying. Soon, climate change will be irreversible, and we are killing the planet one plastic bottle at a time. What a pickle we are in. But sometimes, the smallest of places can help.
The Eco-Union started as a response to Greta Thunberg's campaign to basically look after the planet, and a Year 10 tutor group were really inspired by this, and they formed the Eco-Union. Once a month, once every fortnight at peak times, and would just not be really doing anything apart from being green. What we decided to do this year was to allow the grass to grow, allow some nature to take its course, if you like. Of course, this kind of system needs managing, and in about 2 weeks' time this will be mown. So we've been lucky enough to be able to create our recycling stations, where we've gathered all of the recycling bins on the playground into one place, in fact 2 places across 2 playgrounds, and this hopefully is making recycling much easier for our young people. One of the things we'd like to do is to provide a haven for both wildlife at Hamery Hill, but also students who might need a peaceful and beautiful place to be. So we've selected a corner of the fields. We're currently running a competition with our students to see what design will win, and once that's in, by the end of October, hopefully it will be seeded with wildflower seeds, and we'll be able to move on. So this time next year it will be a beautiful garden.
Hello, my name is Jane Devlin, and I am the Climate and Environment Lead Officer for East Hampshire District Council. Your council is committing to decarbonising its own operations, and transport is one of those. So we've invested in 2 electric vehicles. One is a pool car called a Nissan Leaf, and the other is a small van called an NV200, also a Nissan. You may have seen them running about on business in the district in their smart green and white livery. We've also invested in charge points, 4 at our headquarter office near the Tarot Centre, but also in our public car parks, where you'll see them branded as Genie points. You can find out more about public charger points on ZapMap. Our electric vehicles are used by every service across the council for deliveries, for officers going to meetings, and also for days like today, demonstrations. They're very easy to drive and very easy to park, and once you get used to plugging them in rather than filling them up, it all makes sense and they're miles better. We've also switched to 100% renewable electricity tariff, so our operations for transport are truly net zero. It's important that we have value for money, so we've taken the whole cost of ownership, and because an electric vehicle costs 3 or 4 pence a mile compared to a diesel or petrol car which costs maybe 14 pence a mile, it's much cheaper, they have lower maintenance, and of course there's no vehicle tax either. So they are a compelling low carbon alternative to petrol and diesel cars. We're hoping that everybody will play their part in addressing carbon emissions in East Hampshire, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this local community conference of the parties for East Hampshire. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Hubbard, one of the team of volunteers at Energy Autumn. Over the last 10 years, we've been helping homeowners find ways to make their homes more energy efficient. In 2020, we surveyed 5 typical homes in the town, and this is one of them, to see whether they could be converted to clean heat systems, i.e. those not using gas or oil. We then looked to see what would work for other homeowners in the town and came up with the Clean Heat Guide. One of the ways to save the most carbon is to replace your gas boiler with a heat pump, such as this one. Our guide gives advice on the many ways to reduce carbon emissions, including increasing insulation, reducing drafts, improving heating controls, and installing renewable technologies such as solar panels. Thanks to the support of our town and district councils and Community Energy South, the guide has been printed and is available online free of charge. We're launching it at the East Hampshire COP26 conference on the 8th of October in Alton Maltings. So why not come along, pick up a copy and get all the information you need.
Good afternoon, everybody. May I give you a really, really warm welcome to Alton Maltings. It's great to see so many of you here. It's great to have some buzz back into the building. In fact, today is our 16th anniversary since we moved in here, so it's our birthday. Thank you. Now, after that lovely information, I've got some boring stuff for you to listen, but it would be really helpful if I could just ask you to listen. That's to do with health and safety. The fire alarms have been tested this week already, and they all work perfectly well. So if the alarm goes off, it's for real. So we would ask you to make a smooth transition out to the car park, which is our assembly points at the end of our car park. So if you're on this floor, we've got 2 doors over to my left, your right. Got 1 door over at the far side. There's stairs down to the ground level, so please take care on that. Back up the hill to the car park, or if you go out through this door here, there's a door halfway down, and that's another fire exit. Well, there's 2 or 3 of us around in yellow shirts, so we will be escorting you and trying to get you out quickly and safely. If you're downstairs, again, there's 4 fire exits, 2 at this end of the building, 2 at the other end of the building, and just follow the pathways back up to the car park. Then hopefully the fire engine won't take too long to come, because if the alarm goes off, we have to evacuate, even if it's a false alarm. So no putting water boilers underneath the heat sensors, if that's okay. If you have a first aid incident, there's 2 of us in and out of the front office. Please come and find us. Or if you need more assistance than that, come and find us and we will call emergency services for you. Apart from that, have a great afternoon. Any queries or questions, come and see us in the main office, or somebody from EDHC if it's to do with the particular exhibition. Thanks very much. Have a great afternoon.
Hello there, my name's Will Benson, and surrounding me you will see 10 aeroponic towers, which for the last 3 months have been supplying my restaurant and my retail outlet with the most incredibly fresh, sustainable, no carbon mile foods, and have been an incredible backdrop for my customers. It's a really simple way to grow, no difficult computers, no heavy tech, just really simple, sustainable agriculture. This urban tower farm is highly sustainable. It uses 5% of the water that normal agriculture does. It grows 3 times faster and 30% larger. And it's harvest to order, so there's considerably less wastage when you're growing your own in this fashion. As you can see, this system is incredible. It allows you to grow a whole raft of different types of produce. On one tower, I've got these lovely heritage tomatoes. Down here, I've got some round cucumbers, and at the top, we've got some lovely lettuce. I've got pak choy, I've got chilies. You can see here, I've got some French beans in the background, and that is as much the beauty of this system. It allows you to grow a whole raft of different produce, all on the same tower, meaning that you can change and develop what you're growing depending upon what the business needs. When your average UK lettuce has travelled 1,100 miles to be on your plate, is 4 to 6 days old, and has lost quite a large amount of its nutritional value, we feel this type of tower farm could go a long way in both helping to reduce the UK's food waste and its carbon emissions.
Sandy, and I'm the co-founder of Alton Community Cupboard. The Alton Community Cupboard started in December 2018, just over a year ago. The main purpose is to prevent food going to landfill. Every morning, our little team runs around Alton collecting all the food, brings it back into the cupboard where we have loads of tables and fridges and things, and we sort it all out, make sure it's all safe for people to eat. And then we package it up in a pre-ordered package for people. It's almost like a takeaway, except it's all made of food that would have been destined to landfill. We place a lot of food outside so that passersby can help themselves to as much as they want. We have flowers, bread, usually fruit and vegetables. And at the end of the day, if there's anything left that's no longer fit for people, we take it to a farm so the animals can eat it. Currently, we have about 20 volunteers. We've got quite a big team. We need at least 2 people every day that are packing the food and sorting it out and serving customers. And we need lots of people to run around and collect food, and also people to run around and deliver food, because we deliver to people who are shielding or isolating and can't come to us. The Alton Community Cupboard is open every day except Thursday and Sunday. Usually we open our doors from about 11:30, sometimes a bit earlier if we're ready, and we close at 1 o'clock. We're based in Westbrook Walk. We have a lovely little shop in the pedestrianized area of Alton that's been donated to us from the owners of Westbrook Walk. And it's a nice central location, easy to get to, and you'll find us there just about every day. Because of the pandemic and the economic fallout of the pandemic, we do have a lot more people that are starting to rely on us now. It's a nice supplement. A lot of our people are getting assistance from other agencies, but it's nice to have the free fruit and veg, and it's free to everyone. Volunteers are running this project because we have always been upset about the amount of food that goes to landfill and the fact that there's also people going hungry, and both of those things shouldn't happen. We're all quite committed to both feeding people and saving the environment. Fortunately, we found a way that works to do both.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming to the COP East Hampshire event on 8th of October. I know you're all expecting to see Damien Hines MP standing up here. You've got me instead. My name's Rob McCatter. I'm the East Hampshire Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Regeneration. The reason Damien is not here, and he was here until about an hour ago, is that he has been pinged as a close contact for a COVID person. So he took the decision at 2:30 that the right thing to do was to leave. So just to warn you all that Damien has been pinged. Certainly people like myself who've gone through the rehearsal with him today have been in quite close contact for the last few hours. So I will certainly be getting a PCR test when I get home, and just to make you all aware of that. And I fully understand if in the circumstances anyone feels that things have changed slightly about this afternoon. But that's why you have me here and not Damien. The second thing is I picked up a very nice leaflet outside from some nice people who gave me this. I hate to tell them this is not actually an official East Hampshire or Damien Hines leaflet. It's a very good leaflet. There's a lot in it that I agree with, some that I don't agree with, but just to let you know that this leaflet is not from the District Council. I haven't clicked on the QR code yet, but I suspect that's not going to be a East Hampshire District Council website. I believe the nice people who gave this to me may come in and join in at some stage, and I will welcome them and engage in a debate as they want to, as it fits into the programme. We've got quite a lot ahead of us today. We're trying to cram basically a day's presentations into an afternoon. You're all welcome to stay for the entire day if you want to. If you want to go out at any stage and go and visit the exhibitors downstairs, we won't be offended if you decide that's a good use of your time rather than sitting still for 4 hours. I do ask that you leave by one of those 2 doors, preferably the back door, rather than walking in front of the stage when you do that. We've obviously had a health and safety briefing, so I won't tell you about the fire exits again, because I'm sure no one listened the first time. I'm sure you've seen the schedule. The first things we're going to do is we're going to have a briefing, a welcome address from Alex Sharma, and then we're going to have a video from Lord Deben. The first video is about 5 minutes. The second one is about 20 minutes. We're then going to follow that by a talk from the Chief Executive of EHDC, Jill Neller, and then we'll go on with the rest of the programme. So the first thing I'm going to start with is a welcome from Alok Sharma. We'd originally hoped that Lord Debenham was going to be here, and I'm sure, as you're all aware, he's had to cancel because he actually had a funeral today, unfortunately. So that's why he isn't here. But originally he had said yes, so we'd hope to have him as a keynote speaker. So we can start with Alok Sharma's video and then go on to Lord Debenham's video. If it looks a little bit under-rehearsed, I apologise. I'm standing in for Damien for a lot of this. I did watch him do the rehearsal, but I'm hoping it will run relatively smoothly. So bear with me if something goes slightly wrong. So this is Alok Sharma, I hope.
Hello, I'm Alok Sharma, President Designate of COP26. COP26 is the critical United Nations climate change conference that we are holding in Glasgow in November, where almost 200 countries will come together for one of the most important climate conferences for years. And the reason it is so important is simple. Time is running out to address the impacts of climate change. In 2015, the world signed the Paris Agreement, an international deal to tackle the threat of climate change. And world leaders committed to do all they could to limit global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees and closer to 1.5 degrees because the science shows that this would avoid the very worst effects of climate change. But to keep that 1.5 limit within reach, we must halve global emissions by 2030. And that means taking action now. Now, the good news is that there is no choice to be made between protecting the planet and thriving economies. Here in the United Kingdom, for example, over the last 30 years, we have grown our economy by 78%, whilst cutting emissions by 44%. And across the country, we aim for the economy to support 2 million green jobs over the next 10 years. At COP26, we want to put the world on a path to driving down emissions until they reach net zero by the middle of the century. And that's essential to keeping the 1.5 degree limit alive. We also want to take action to protect people and nature from the effects of climate change, like storms and droughts, to get public and private finance flowing to climate action, and to work together to make the negotiations in Glasgow a success. We all have a role to play in tackling the climate crisis. It is the combined efforts of cities, regions, businesses, communities across the UK, and indeed across the world, that will make our clean, green future a reality. So I urge you to explore what your area, your community can do. And together, at COP26 and beyond, let's make 2021 the year we get the world on track to protect our precious planet. Thank you.
Very pleased to be with you in East Hampshire today, and I'm only sorry that it's virtually and not actually. But what you're planning for the day is a remarkable example of what we need to do all over the country, because we're not going to win through the battle against climate change unless we all do it, and we do it together, and every community feels itself to be part of the national and international effort. The problem with climate change, of course, is that it is a global issue. And we'll only solve it if we solve it with global solutions. But global solutions are actually made up of individual choices, community choices, local authority choices, then national choices. And what you're doing and have been doing is a crucially important part of that programme. Now, I want to start by trying to put climate change into the right frame. And I think the only example that really works is the one that the Pope in his encyclical Laudato Si used. He talked about climate change as the symptom of what we've done to the world. And you need, therefore, not to look at the symptom, but the disease behind. And that is exactly what we have to do now. The solutions to the changing of our climate are solutions about the way in which we have behaved towards our planet. And of course, that's very uncomfortable, and it challenges a whole lot of things that we've taken for granted for a very, very long time. First of all, it challenges our attitudes towards the soil. I think sometimes it's a good idea to look back at one of those great ways of thinking about the world from medieval England. The idea of the elements, of the 4 elements of earth, water, air, and fire. After all, that is soil, water, air, and energy, the four things that we have to deal with if we're dealing with what we've done to the world. And if we start with soil, and in East Hampshire there's no area more important, we have to recognise that reliving and re-understanding how we use our soil is absolutely crucial. And farmers and landowners are going to be at the heart of what we have to do, for two very clear reasons. One is that agriculture is a major source of emissions, and secondly, that the soil is a major opportunity for sequestration, for drawing out of the atmosphere the carbon which is so damaging if it gets beyond a certain level. So there is both a healing element in soil and also a dangerous element. And we have thought too little about our soil. All over the world, soils are less fertile than they were. We've drawn out of them without putting back. And we've got to learn again how you build up soil. And also the trace elements which were crucial to our health are lessened, sometimes removed entirely. So when we have our 5 a day, they're less valuable today than they were 40 years ago. And we know too that at the same time as misusing our soil, we have reduced our biodiversity. I hate that word. I once gave a prize for somebody who gave me a better word when I was a minister. It didn't work. Nobody could produce a better word. It is, after all, this wonderful world which we have been given. And I'm proud that the government has used a word which it has never used, I think, before, is that it is seeking to recover the abundance of biodiversity. Now, this means that farmers have got a dual purpose now. First of all, we have to encourage them to grow the food we need. I'm a passionate defender of British food being sold in British shops. And farmers have got to have that opportunity. And we've got to pay better for it. We've allowed cheap food to undermine our ability to allow the land to recover. And so if we're going to do what we need to do, we have to recognise that if we ask people to eat less meat, we're also asking them to eat better meat. So one spends less because one eats less of it, but spends more because the sort of meat that we're going to eat is pasture-fed, it has the lowest carbon footprint in the world, and it's British meat. Now here I do have to be critical about a decision by the government which was in the agreement with Australia. The government will have, and I'm the independent chairman of the Climate Change Committee, I have to say to the government, it will have to learn that you cannot ask our farmers to do what they need to do if you then allow other countries to export and compete with them in our market when they don't have to do those things. Australia does not have a good environmental record. It doesn't have the standards which we have. And the idea that in 15 years they'll be able to export to us without any restrictions is unacceptable if we're going to ask our farmers to do what they need to do. Now, they're committed to get to net zero by 2040. There's a bit of an argument about whether their figures are exactly right, but the point is that that's what they're trying to do. And I honour both the National Farmers Union and indeed the Country Land and Business Organisation, because both have committed themselves. They understand what their role is. And I know that you're doing a lot of work of thinking about what it needs to be in your area to get that part of it right. Land use, planting of trees, the improvement of our grasslands, the ability for soil to sequestrate carbon. All those things are going to be absolutely central to what we're going to do. And we need to have a system which encourages that and rewards it. But of course, it's not only going to be farmers, it's the rest of us. And that in a rural area is particularly important. We rely on our motor cars in order to get around. It's very difficult to provide public transport in areas which are thinly populated and where people's desires are increasingly different. So it's very important that we make the change from internal combustion engines to electric motor cars. I have to say, I have an electric motor car. It's totally changed my views. I had it because one ought to have it. I have to say, I wouldn't have anything else now. And as they become cheaper and as they become cheaper to run, which is the remarkable thing, then we've got to move to them quickly. And the government has been absolutely right to say no more internal combustion engines after 2030, but only electric and the equivalent. I think we're going to have to look a bit more carefully about the equivalent. But otherwise, this is a remarkable and really a groundbreaking decision. We should be very proud that that is what Britain has done. But we've also got to think a bit more in the country, and I say this as a countryman, a bit more about our walking. I've always found it easier to walk in London because somehow or other you can feel you go as far as you want and you can get back in a different way. You have to go for a walk in the country. We're not terribly good at it. All the signs are that we ought to walk more, it'd be much better for us, or to cycle more. And we've got to find ways of making that easier and better. And of course, one of the problems is that our crowded roads, and particularly the country roads, we have a great deal of problem with those who don't understand the seriousness of the way in which driving too fast in the country does so much harm. But those things are things we've got to get over, and we have got to think ourselves all the time about what we can do as individuals. And one of those is clearly on transport. And we should become better able to use the technology which enables us to use more freely and in a better way public transport. And I know that you've been looking at the application of modern technology for that. And I believe there'll be some very big breakthroughs on that. But it's not only transport in that sense, it's also the way in which we think about our own lives. And there's a lot of people go around saying, well, of course, what we need to do is to make these changes, but nobody needs to notice them. We want to live exactly as we have done up to now. I'm not one of those who say that, because I think there are a lot of changes which we ought to be making, which will make life very much better. Indeed, when we talk about fighting climate change, I hope we keep on thinking about the world we are building. This is a cleaner, greener, kinder world. The sort of world we need to build is not where we have been, but where we ought to be. It'll be a much better place for most people. Indeed, I think for everybody, but as a former politician, I never say that. But for most people, it certainly will be. And so let's think about some of those things that we can stick to. I do think working some days at home should become the norm. I'm sitting in my office today because on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, everybody comes in. As far as the other days of the week, people come in when they want to. We've found in our businesses that home working has been a great success. It's been a huge help to many families. Better family life means that people are happier at work. I do believe that that is the way we should go, and I'm glad that the government has stopped suggesting that getting back to normal means going back to the office 5 days a week. And you've got quite a lot of people who commute in one way or another. They will be happier if the system makes it easier for them to be at the office for enough to have the relationships that we all need to keep ourselves in be coherent with our other workers, but enough time at home also to do one's work as one can, so much more successfully. Now, that isn't true for everybody, and therefore we've got to make it possible for those for whom home conditions don't make that suitable to have proper space in the office. So let's come back to that. I expect many of you have some difficulty of trying to explain to your neighbours what this is all about. So I usually start with gardening. There are 3 million more gardeners since lockdown. And I do think that gardening shows people what we're really about. It's only in the 1960s that spring came 17 days later than it does now. So spring has come much earlier, and gardeners know it. And gardeners who care about these things notice that the blossom comes out before the pollinators, that we've got the things out of kilter, and that is a serious example of what is happening to us here. Of course, it's much worse nearer to the equator. Countries which are already hot are now in serious problems with long periods of levels of heat which are, for human beings, impossible to bear. We're going to have many more hot periods. Sometimes after a month like September, we don't really believe it, but we will. And that means we've got to think much more about ventilation. We've got to think much more about how we build. And I know that you have been dealing with building. And I think there are 4 things I'd like to suggest on this. First of all of us can make our own homes that much better, because by the extra layer of insulation, by checking that what we've done already in the attic is now sufficient, by making it possible to be warmer simply by those methods, we can make a major contribution. And it's still true that the majority of houses in Britain are not insulated enough, and most of those could be insulated relatively cheaply, much better. And then there's the question of what we do if we're involved in building itself, whether it's an extension, improvement in our own homes, making sure that we get the best advice to make it not only well insulated, but also well ventilated, because that is going to be equally important. And then I think we really have to start being much tougher about the houses that we build. And here again, I have to be critical about government, because back in 2017, the government was doing 2 contrary things. One was the remarkable decision by George Osborne that we would spend from bill payers £6.7 billion to start what has been the most remarkable wind power industry. It was a very real decision with real foresight. Sadly, at the same time, roughly, we stopped the decision to go for zero carbon homes. And since then, more than 1 million houses have been built which will have to be retrofitted. Now, I'm sorry that the government made that decision. I'm even angry about the house building industry, because what they've done by continuing to build houses which are not fit for the future is to hand on to those 1 million or more families who have bought their houses the bill for retrofitting. Now, no doubt the government will find ways of helping. No doubt it'll be easier than it looks like at the moment. But the fact of the matter is, those changes should have been made in the building of the house, and it wouldn't have increased the cost of the homes, because the cost comes out, as we all know, of the amount that they pay for the land. Because the land price is actually dictated by the end price you can sell the house for and the amount it's cost you to build them. It costs you a bit more to build them, the land price will drop a bit. But as we all know in the country, the difference between agricultural land price and the price that you have to pay for development land is so large that that little difference will be easily absorbed. So I'm sorry that we are in that position, but we have now to insist on much higher standards. The government has promised us a future buildings programme, but local authorities have got a bit tougher too. And I'm very much pressing for local authorities to be given much more power to say what they want in their areas, particularly with the pressures in the south of England on house building and the problems that we're all facing trying to protect our countryside. And of course, that is part of how we should be thinking of building, because as I say, biodiversity is of huge need, and we can't do without getting back that abundance which the government has begun very seriously, not only to contemplate, but through the Environment Bill to give the powers to achieve. Well, there's a lot more that we could talk about, but I am very pleased that you are doing so much locally. I hope this is only the beginning of a continuing process, because together we have to win this battle, and together we will. And we should be proud that we have a cross-party support for this, and that this government has set an example throughout the world by the standards which it has established and the targets to which it is committed. What we must look for now is that that is turned into action, and that government, local government, parish councils and individuals do their bit in order to make sure that the world is rescued. It's a marvellous moment, you know. It's the very, very most exciting moment to live, because this is the moment when human beings know that they could destroy their world, but they also know how they can save their world. What a responsibility, but also what a remarkable challenge. Thank you so much for stepping up to that challenge.
Obviously, I'm going to say thank you to a video, which feels a little bit foolish, but I hope we found that a thought-provoking 20 minutes. We've watched it before, those of us who are organising today, and I think there's a lot of meat in there for us, particularly in light of what we're going to discuss from a bottom-up perspective that we've been doing in East Hampshire. A lot of the things he talks about, retrofitting homes, local planning, all those sorts of issues are about to come up when we talk to the three panels we've organised shortly. First thing I'm going to do is invite all those who are standing, please come and sit down. It's quite a long day, and I don't want you to get worn out by leaning against the walls. We do have lots of seats down here, so if you feel you want to come and sit down rather than stand up for the next 2 or 3 hours, you're very welcome to come and sit down. That worked. But when you do come in, don't feel embarrassed to walk all the way down. There's 4 seats in the front row here, there's another 4 over there, there's plenty of space. This day was organised jointly by Damien Hines, our local MP, and his team, and by East Hampshire District Council. And as I said at the beginning, I'm one of the East Hampshire District Councillors. I'm in the Cabinet responsible for climate change. I'm delighted to see we have lots of both officers and councillors here today. My guess is we have more than half of the EHDC councillors here. Just as a matter of interest, if you are an EHDC councillor, please stand up and just introduce yourself to the residents. You can see how seriously we as a district councillor are taking this event, and you can see that we've got loads of us here today because we think this is a really important event for the residents of East Hampshire. So I'm delighted to see this support from the number of councillors who are here. So thank you all very much for coming. That was a most impressive display of support by the councillors for what the council is trying to achieve. The next thing I'm going to do is introduce our Chief Executive, who I'm trying to see where Jill is in the room. Jill's over there, I apologise, I don't have eyes on the left of my head. Jill is the Chief Executive of the EHDC, and she's going to talk for a few minutes, you'll be glad to hear without slides, about what EHDC is currently doing, has done, and plans to do about climate change. So over to you, Jill, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Makata, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by saying how proud I am to be involved with the event today, and proud of the people who've been involved in organising it as well. It's a fantastic event, over 400 people here, and such a diverse representation of our communities, all ages, all walks of life. Everyone here keen to know more and keen to make a difference, so I'm really proud to be here. I was appointed as Chief Executive of East Hampshire District Council on the 18th of July 2019, and that was the same day that the Council declared a climate emergency. So, as a Chief Executive, you can see that that was a very clear message to me about my priorities for the organisation. Since then, the Council has made good progress towards reducing the impact of our services on the environment, and one of the things that we've done is to develop and adopt a policy, a strategy, and that's a 5-year plan with clear priorities for action set out. And we made sure in developing that plan that we involved local residents and experts, because we wanted that strategy to really give us a kickstart in the council and in the community to move us towards net zero carbon in line with national targets. We are making progress as well towards decarbonising our operations. For example, we've moved our electricity supply to a tariff that is 100% renewable. We've replaced our pool car and our pool van with electric vehicles, and as you can imagine, that's been very handy over the last couple of weeks. I firmly believe that this way of thinking about our services and the things that we do needs to be embedded throughout the organisation. It isn't for 1 or 2 people or a team to deliver. So we are introducing a climate awareness programme that all our councillors and officers will be part of, and it will become part of our induction for new starters, both officers and councillors. The pandemic, as we've heard, has taught us many things. One of the things it's taught us is that we can all learn to do things drastically differently in a very short period of time. And one of the things we've done very differently, like many organisations, is to work from home, work virtually, and as you've already heard, that has a drastic impact on our carbon footprint. You know, the miles that are being driven by our officers is much, much lower, and councillors as well. And we're committed to retaining those ways of working and also the environmental benefits that go along with them. So part of our responsibility is to support others to act in response to the climate change agenda. And I must say, I really have been inspired by the people who are involved locally. As with many things in life, I'm absolutely certain that it's people and relationships that make change happen. It's not strategies and it's not process. And we have some amazing people both in the council and in the community working with us. I've been particularly inspired by the catalysing effect created by ACAN and PCAN and the people working within those organisations. Their in-depth knowledge, their enthusiasm, their positive approach is actually driving change forward in our area, and I'm delighted that we're working with them. I've also been inspired by the energy and passion of the younger generation. They are committed to the environment and committed to doing everything they possibly can to protect it. And for me, what that does is to bring into sharp relief the responsibility on me and the council to make the right decisions and the right changes now for future generations. So looking to the future, I'd just like to outline a few things that we'll be doing. I obviously can't talk about everything in the limited time I have, but one thing that we are doing is making sure that any formal decisions that are made by the council will include environmental impacts and options and proposals to minimise those impacts. We've also set up a reserve of £300,000 to support environmental initiatives. In addition, every councillor, that's 43 councillors in East Hampshire, has an allowance of £4,000 to use for projects and initiatives in their area, and 25% of that at least has to be used on climate change and environmental initiatives. So across the districts, that's at least £43,000, but could be a lot more. Reducing energy demand in homes is vital to this agenda, and we already have a central government funded programme that's delivered £2 million worth of improvements to make our poorest performing homes more energy efficient, and we're determined to roll that programme out further. In the pipeline, coming soon at the end of October, there's a paper going to Cabinet, and they will be asked to agree a sum of £50,000 to support the tree planting programme and the promise that was made to plant a tree for every resident in the district. So look out for that at the end of October. We've also recently appointed a climate change champion, and Councillor Steve Hunt is here. I'm sure he'll stand up so that you can meet him and speak to him later. He will be hosting Let's Talk events and climate conversations, and you'll find out more about that on our website and social media. The other thing I wanted to touch on has already been covered far more articulately than I could, but I will just re-emphasise what's already been said, and that's about our role as a local planning authority. You know, it's a good example of a conversation we ought to be having with central government about the powers that we need to make a difference locally. We really, really need to ask ourselves, we all need to ask ourselves why homes are being built that are not net carbon zero. And we can have that conversation with central government. And I think that following on from that, what we actually need is the Future Homes Standard to be more ambitious, and also for it to be adopted much earlier than planned. And this will help us to ensure that local homes are thermally efficient and reduce people's fuel bills as well. So, hot off the press, I can tell you that the leader of East Hampshire District Council, who can't actually be with us today, has asked me to flag to you that he will be making an announcement about environmental policy for East Hampshire District Council very soon in the next few weeks. So please look out for that on social media and in the press, and I'm sure you'll look forward to hearing what he has to say. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the recommendations from the expert groups. It's really interesting to see the suggestions and recommendations that they're putting forward, and how we can work with you as our communities to take them forward and make them a reality. We're really lucky in East Hampshire to live in such a beautiful, or work in such a beautiful part of the world, and it's down to every single one of us to play our part to protect it. What we do really does matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. It's always a pleasure as a member of the Council to hear the officer who leads the Council talking to an agenda that the Councillors support. And I think this is a cross-party event today. We've had lots of involvement from different members of different parties. And it's really encouraging to hear what Jill has just said to work for the residents of East Hampshire. We're now going to move on to what I think is the meat of today's presentation. We have organised 3 panels from the bottom up, involving local residents, involving local activists, involving local experts, to look at the 3 areas where we think that the residents and businesses of East Hampshire can have their greatest impact. They've been formed into 3 groups, and I'm just going to thank by name all the people who were in the 3 different groups. The first one is transport, the second one is buildings, and the third one is land use. So first of all, I want to thank, I should point out that these 3 panels had something like 30 meetings, 35 meetings between them. It's been going on since May. It's a huge amount of work, particularly for our 3 chairmen. I will thank them in a second. just a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the residents of East Hampshire for trying to work out what we can do. So the first of these three panels has been chaired by Keith Hopper. I'm going to invite Keith to stand up in a minute and present the report. But I'm also going to thank by name everyone who's on that panel, except for myself. I don't think I need to do that. But Councillor Paula Langley was involved from EHDC, Lisa Cook from Hampshire County Council, Nicola Waite from Hampshire County Council, Mark Miller from East Hampshire Community Rail Partnership, Chris Chappell, I know, is here from Cycle Alton, Peter Lindham from the Peaceful Society, Sonia Davey from ACAN, Steve Atkins from PCAN, Mike Garner from the Garner Group, Simon Legg from the UK EV Owners Club member, and we also had some input from the former head of the Peaceful Infant School, Alison Cruz. So that was the transport group. The second group, chaired by Mark Penfold. You may know that Mark's a local architect living and based in Alton. He also, unfortunately, has come into contact with myself because he chairs the South Downs National Park Design Review Panel, and I sit on the National Park body for EHDC. So I've come into contact with him a number of times, looking at design review, and become much more interested in the design of buildings and plots as a result of Mark and the other members' expertise. I know we have several other members of that panel here today, so I'm just very grateful for the insights they've been able to share with novices like myself. So again, I'm going to thank a number of people who are on that panel. Councillor Adam Crew, who's chairman of the EHDC, I realise has just come in. I thought he was wearing an MCC tie, but on second view, I don't think it is. It's a little bit similar, but it's not the same. Christian Seward from the Sustainability Centre, Paul Siniglio from the National Energy Foundation, Bruce Collinson from the Whitehill and Borden Regeneration Company, John Gander from Whitman Labs, Rose Bean from ABRI, Robert Gundy from Hampshire County Council, Jenny Griffiths from ACAN, Greg Ford from PCAN, and Julian Brooks from the Good Homes Alliance. And the third group was on land use and agriculture, chaired by Sir David Normington. I should point out all three of our chairmen are all East Hampshire residents and have been giving up their time to this process for free, and we're incredibly grateful for them. The other people who have been on the land use and agriculture panel are Margaret Parent, the former chairman of the South Downs National Park Authority. I know is here because I talked to her earlier on. Professor Andy Moffat, who I also had a talk to, who's from the Peaceful Society, who's a world-renowned tree expert. William Selborne from the Blackmore Estates, Ben Gibbons from the NFU, Will Benson from Applegar Farm, and you will have seen his video on here earlier on, Kent Faulkner from Norton Farm, Lionel Fanshawe from Terra Firma Landscape Architects, Ben Robinson from King's Farm in Weald, Eleanor Hill from ACAN, Melanie Oxley from PCAN, and Kim Wilkie, who's also a landscape architect. So at that stage, I'm going to also say thank you on behalf of the District Council to the panel members. The Woodland Trust have very kindly offered to give a sapling to every one of those people who gave up their time. So we'll organise that over the coming months for a Woodland Trust sapling to go to each of the panel members. I'm looking forward to planting that, which I will do due ceremony when I receive it. So at this stage, I'm going to hand over to the three presentations. Each of these is going to take 10 to 15 minutes, and we're going to have a discussion or a panel chaired by Colin Channon, who is he's actually the chairman of Tyndale Group, which, for those who don't know, is effectively the Post and Herald groups of newspapers. So after the three presentations, Colin is going to ask questions and act as compere. So if those four people would like to come up on stage, I'd be very grateful if they can come up so we can hear, first of all, from Keith Hopper, then from Mark Penfold, and then from Sir David Normington, and then Colin can compare the Q&A session. We'd originally thought of involving the audience, but I think that we're trying to cram a huge amount in. Colin has taken a set of questions, and people have other questions to ask in due course. We're going to have a series of Let's Talk events, so we thought the best thing to do was actually to focus on a limited number of questions in the 45 minutes we have, rather than opening up with this floor. I fully accept people have lots of questions. I invite you all to let the EHDC have those questions by email, and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can. So over to you. I guess, Keith, you're going first. Good luck.
Isn't it lovely seeing all those smiling faces of these chairmen and who've done all this work for the last 4 months? Eh? I think we're smiling to say, well, thank goodness that's over. You know, it has been a busy time, a very worthwhile time, and I think we have all enjoyed it, but I'll leave the others to have their say. But this is going to be a little bit difficult because it's obviously 10 minutes worth, and I know I'm going to be held to the 10 minutes by somebody who's going to wave at me when the time comes, to actually get in 4 months worth of work and decisions that we've made to try and right, forgive me. Okay. One of the things that I found very disappointing was actually when people knew what I was doing, I was chairing this, the people actually on the group, very positive, really wanted to do something, really keen, that was lovely. Every time I mentioned it to anybody outside that group, neighbours, friends and the like, I was always very disappointed by the cynicism that actually comes out. It's, if you like, a British trait that we do have, whether it's road schemes being produced or almost anything good you're trying to do, there's always a reason for not doing it. And you hear all of those, and I found that very disappointing. There is lots of bad news and difficult news about how we're going to actually achieve things in the time scale that's been put forward already. But we know we've got no choice, we've got to go with it, and so let's do that and get on with it. And that's the message I try and put to everybody I speak to on this. Come on, get on with it, we have to work together. And that message came across from Lord Debon, I thought was really good. And it's got to be the way that we all do try and move forward. Now, transport, the current situation, if you like, this is really just saying the problems that we've got. UK gas emissions, transport counts for 27%, the highest one of all of them. We've got 31.7 million cars out there, with 2.3 million registrations each year, and you can already begin to see how long it's going to take to actually change every one of those vehicles over to a different form of propulsion. Some very, very difficult problems. One of the big issues as well is public transport. Whilst I came by train today and it actually worked fantastically. Petersfield to here, not an easy route, but it was marvellous, quick, and I really couldn't complain at all. But that's not the view the public have of public transport. Buses never go in the right place. They always take you miles out of your way. There are so many reasons for not liking what we've got now. All of these things have got to change. And one of the big ones that I'm certainly, hopefully, going to be involved in is walking and cycling, because those are the big things for the future. A lot of people don't even know there's a climate crisis yet because they will ignore what's going on abroad. We don't really have many problems in this country yet, but we're trying to get ahead of that game, if you like, and think of the worldwide scene, not our own local one. But put simply, we have got to drastically reduce our gas emissions. We've got to change, almost at the start of that, is the people's views out there, where they're cynics, they're not wanting to take it on board. The biggest challenge, I think, to get going on is actually to get people to take it seriously and to even think of changing whatever their style is at the present time. Reducing to zero really depends on the sale of the new zero vehicles. And at the moment, the actual number of zero vehicles, electric vehicles, is actually quite low. We all know the reasons. The batteries aren't there. There's a 5-month delay before you can get a new car. There's lots of negative messages, but those things will change, I'm sure. I am impressed by the fact that Volvo, for instance, have said, no, we're going to stop manufacturing just petrol and diesel cars by 2025. We're not going to wait till 2030. And I think if they do, others will follow. And you can see an acceleration coming out of all this, which I think will be really good. One of the issues that does worry me is that a quarter of the life savings in emissions with an electric vehicle are actually used in manufacturing it in the first place. And that, you've got to do the sums in there, but again, there's no choice, we've got to get on with it. There are so many different types. I found it encouraging that there are so many hybrids. Those outside, you've got mild hybrid, full hybrid, plug-in hybrid. There are so many, but they're all heading in the same direction of at least using less petrol and diesel than we used before. I mean, that's the good message for now, when we can't actually make every new vehicle a fully electric one. Reducing the need to travel is a big part of this. We're looking at different ways of actually reducing. The first one is to actually have vehicles that no longer actually do use petrol and diesel. That's the key first one. After that, well, let's reduce the need to travel. Home working, as has been mentioned, is obviously a key one, really good, and so many people actually like the home working. It's marvellous that people can actually like what they're being forced to do anyway, and it's working out very nicely. It's one of the benefits that we've had from COVID. An awareness of carbon footprints for holidays, that will come hard for people to actually say, no, I won't go to the Bahamas, I'll go to Bognor instead for a week. And it won't come easily, but we want people to think about it. And even the old internal combustion engine designs, they will improve over the coming years. While people are still going to be buying them, they will be getting better and better. Even the diesels now with AdBlue to try and actually reduce the gases coming out. It's all good to be having. But what can we all do as individuals? Sorry, I'm getting out of sync. Taking it seriously is the very first one, as I started off with. Becoming aware of our own carbon footprint. Use the car less is a good one. Walk and cycle whenever you possibly can. You don't have to get the car out. Travel less, stay local. When you're driving, drive in a better, smoother way, less braking, less acceleration, all these things which we all know about as drivers, but they don't actually come easily to us when we're actually out there driving. And when you want to change a car, please go for a zero electric one, would be rather nice. We certainly want, charging points is a major issue out there, and I worry that people are not necessarily coordinating it, although I know that East Hants District Council are on the way to this, so that we can actually sort out that people will be able to charge when they're out on the highway, not just charging at home. Car clubs, active travel. Walking and cycling is to be valued and encouraged. Absolutely. And I've been plagued by cycling friends for the last few months, I really have. But it's jolly good way. Cycling is good, walking is excellent, and we want far more of it. And I'm confident, actually, because I'm a highway engineer by career, a chartered highway engineer, that we are turning a corner now, that we will now be paying a lot more attention to walking and cycling, what that means for our roads, which is that they will be friendlier to people actually on their feet. And I would just go through a couple of slides here. This is the sort of thing that people have to put up with. And under COVID, people were walking in the road because the footpaths weren't wide enough to socially distance from one another. And so people with their hedges growing 3 feet out, nearly a metre, into the footway, a pretty bad result. And you get them all over the place. Every town has got them. With this one, the people have actually worn away the grass verge while they tried to avoid the hedge that was growing there. These things will be addressed so that we can make sure walking becomes much more of a pleasurable experience. Town centres, we're looking to be more pedestrian friendly. And that's going to be difficult for traffic that's in the town. It's all right, forgive me, I'm being waved at with a red light, and I do understand. Okay, public transport I've not mentioned yet. It's a key area, again, that people don't think it's doing very well. I know that people will be looking at that to improve it. The new types of cargo bike that are coming out are going to, I think, as well, transform people's actions and enable them to cycle a lot more. I'm moving on really fast, Daniel, so that I don't get in your way. So can I just say, yes, I'm really positive about the way things are going, what people can do, but we've got to get the message across. You've got to change your habits. Just understand what you are doing with your current thing. And I think that's going to come from government, local government, every possible place. We've got to get this message about. Please think about what you're doing and change. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As Keith has just said, we have 10 minutes to present what's come out of our groups. And I've got Daniel here with the yellow and red cards to show us. But actually, that 10 minutes is the amount of time that the world needs to engage with this issue if we're ever going to get anywhere near it. In context, 19% of the UK's total emissions come from heating buildings. 77% of that comes from our homes. 78% of the energy to heat homes comes from gas. The UK has a diverse stock of buildings, of which only about 15% have been built under any standards of insulation and energy performance, most of which are not good enough. Gas boilers are to be banned from being installed in new homes in... there we go. Gas boilers are to be banned to be installed in new homes from 2025, yet housing developers continue to build houses even now, which are insufficient to meet the requirements to decarbonise, including systems that include gas boilers for heating. Our group split our discussions into 3 sections, and the aim of our group was to assist East Hampshire to become a leader in energy performance. We focused on domestic buildings, and although the matters discussed apply to all building types. And the 3 sections we looked at were national government policy, local government policy, and engaging with people in Hampshire. So from the national point of view, we set ourselves a task to shortlist national points that would have the most impact for credible and realistic adoption by government. From local government, we reviewed the actions that could be undertaken by Hampshire County Council, East Hampshire District Council, the South Downs National Park, town and parish councils. This is where the national policies filter into local arena. And it was really good to hear Jill say that East Hampshire are already engaging with these things. And then we have to engage with the person in the street, enabling them to understand, to become enthusiastic, to give them an understanding of what they can and need to do. So from the national government policy point of view, building regulations should be significantly improved, and local authorities should have the freedom to adopt the highest energy efficiency standards in their planning policies. For too long, the building regulations have not been good enough to address the issues, and local planning authorities have not been able to demand better standards. This must change now. Also, there should be a national spatial plan for the sustainable use of land that focuses on climate change, sustainable development, and transport, energy use, well-being, and the natural ecosystems. There should be a national strategy for retrofitting of existing buildings. That's 85% of the buildings we have, to enable them to become more efficient and viable for heating that avoids fossil fuels. As the majority of buildings have been built with no standards of insulation and energy performance, we have to have a strategy for retrofitting those buildings so that they can become viable and to be used without using fossil fuel. Now here's the crux. There should be a clear and viable financial incentives to encourage people to spend money to save energy and cut carbon emissions. This is an expensive process, So people must have sufficient encouragement to undertake the works to achieve the aim of reducing the energy they use and to avoid the use of fossil fuels. The imposition of VAT on refurbishment has the effect of making this more expensive than it needs to be and encourages demolition instead of reuse. This needs to level up the VAT dichotomy between new build and reuse and repurposing existing buildings. There should be significant investment in the technical and further education infrastructure to create a workforce with skills to undertake sustainable construction and to enable the proper integration of renewable technologies. We need a significant improvement and expansion in this workforce. These people need training and encouragement to join a dynamic and exciting industry. My practice has recently completed a renewable centre at a college locally. Excellent facilities, but they struggle to get teachers to teach the essential skills. It is also essential, if we're going to change our fuel use, that we have in place a full infrastructure to provide and support the availability of zero carbon energy, to include sufficient levels of energy from zero carbon sources for the power requirements of the new technologies. The move from fossil fuels means that the zero carbon network needs to be expanded almost exponentially. We will rely on significant demand on the electric network and the increase in availability for clean electricity. If you have a heat pump and you have an electric car, a lot of houses will need three-phase supplies. Most don't have those. At the local level, this is where people will be engaged through the counties, the districts, towns and parish councils. And this is where the national policies and instruments filter through into the local arena. It was really good, again, to hear Jill saying what she was saying about what East Hants are doing. But the trusted local climate action networks have to be supported by local authorities to help them provide the information to everyone, to give them best advice for the most effective modification to their buildings. And today, ACAN have published their Clean Heat Guide with the assistance of East Hants District Council. Local authorities need to develop data resources as well on the energy efficiency of the local building stock. How many people actually know how well their buildings perform? You know how many miles to the gallon your car does or whatever, or how many miles you've got left on your electric charge, but actually how many people know how their buildings are doing? There needs to be a significant increase in the understanding of how the building stock actually performs and therefore what to do to reduce energy consumption and reliance on fossil fuel. The local authorities have got to revisit their local plans. They've got to bring policies on sustainability, energy, environment, climate and nature in line with exemplar practice. There needs to be a process that enables local authorities to improve the energy efficient parts of their local plans immediately and not through the usual long process, which will be too late. Local authorities have got to develop funding initiatives through grants and loan facilities for domestic retrofit and for community buildings. There need to be programmes for grant funding and affordable financial initiatives to enable people to undertake sustainable retrofit projects. This needs to be coupled to increasing comfort and reduced environmental and financial costs of running properties. Fuel poverty and fuel costs need to be factored into these processes. If you're going to use electricity, it's a lot more expensive. Provide support and provide material throughout the area to enable local populations, businesses, community and education establishments to be helped in the decarbonisation of buildings. And therefore, from the individuals, everyone needs to be engaged. Every single person in the street, every community, every school, every business. And we need to develop an understanding of the challenges and how the individual and those organisations can make their own contribution to reducing climate change. People need to have trusted information. Let's get rid of the greenwash that has been around for some time. Lists of organisations, specialists and businesses who can be trusted to do the right thing and to give the right advice. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do that you try and that doesn't work so well, but there's a lot of information and knowledge now that enables people to do that. But the most important thing is to develop and sustain the behaviour change in people through education, information, the knowledge and the trusted resources to sustain a wide enthusiasm for the process to reduce use of carbon fuels and live sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll see that there are overlaps between the different groups, as there should be. This is the report of the Land Use and Agriculture group, and I'm going to take you through a little bit about what we discussed and how we approached our work. You'll see that first that land, and more specifically farming, is not the main source of greenhouse gas emissions in the UK compared with the other two groups. And it's important to say, and Lord Dibden said this, UK farming compares well with agriculture in the rest of the world, where farming is often more intensive and where trees are often cut down to create pasture. But there is a health warning here. What those figures on the top lines there do not capture is the carbon emissions from the food supply chain, and we've learnt quite a bit about that recently. From the moment food leaves the farm to the moment it gets put back as waste into landfill, the processing, the transportation, the packaging, the disposal is producing greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide and methane. So those figures are an underestimate. The better news is that land is an important part of the solution. Trees, hedges, pasture, soil, they're all potential storers of carbon. The problem is not the land itself, it's what we human beings do with it. Every time we cut down trees, every time we grub up hedges, every time we spread fertilizers, every time we plough when we don't need to, every time we put peat on our gardens or put too many animals on the land, we nullify the benefits which the natural world has given us. In East Hampshire, land use and agriculture, of course, is particularly relevant to our green and pleasant part of the world, and much is already being done in the district, and we learnt lots about that in our group, particularly from some of our farmers who are leading the way, working in clusters and partnerships often. But change is not happening fast enough. This is one of the themes of today. Change is not happening quickly enough. Despite all the commitments to plant trees, and we welcome the District Council's support for that, actually, trees are dying here. We're about to lose 10% of our trees through ash dieback. And some of our urban areas, we think of them as being very nice, but actually, pleasant as they may seem, the Petersfield Society has shown us that they're surprisingly short of green infrastructure. Petersfield, for example, according to the Petersfield Society's survey, has a lower percentage of tree cover than Birmingham. 15% coverage compared with 23% in Birmingham. By the way, I was in Birmingham this week, and they have a lot of trees. It's not a pretty city, but they do have an enormous number of trees everywhere. And actually, we know that Petersfield could have more. New developments since the 60s onwards have been allowed by the planners to be built with the minimum numbers of trees and hedges, and it is still continuing. And that is an example of what I'm talking about, and there are quite a lot of those around the place. So we too have some asks for government, for national government. You can read this slide for yourself, I hope, so I'm not going to repeat it all, but I do want to elaborate on that first bit about the financial incentives and the financial framework. We've left the EU, and we've also left the Common Agricultural Policy. So the government is introducing a new set of financial incentives for farmers, a new framework of financial support. And that will be very influential on how our farms operate. we can and must have a framework which puts low carbon farming practices and not cheap food at the heart of our farming practices. As Lord Dibden said, the government's proposed grants framework is developing and it's on the right lines, but progress is slow. It's 5 years since we left the EU. It may be another 10 years before the full effects of the new policies are felt. We can't wait that long. So farmers need three things. They need a very clear idea of where we're going and a roadmap for getting there. Secondly, they need some incentives and recognition for those who go faster. Let's encourage the early adopters, the ones who are doing it first. And thirdly, we need some assurance. The farmers need some assurance that they can farm profitably, produce food that people can afford to buy, and Lord Dibden was so right about this, they will not be undercut by foreign producers with lower standards of emissions. Of course, we were asked to focus on what we can do locally. What can we do in East Hampshire? It sometimes seems difficult to think about East Hampshire compared with all those coal mines in India and China, all those power stations belching out emissions. But we can do things here, and we must. So we're proposing three things. First, we're proposing a truly massive effort to plant trees and create new woodland. There's no downside to planting trees and to protecting those that already exist. Trees store carbon, trees take up water, trees provide shade, and we'll need a lot of that as temperatures increase. They create habitats, they make the environment green and pleasant. I've just put 1 million on this slide because East Hampshire District Council, 120,000 is not enough. It's not enough. The Climate Change Committee has proposed a UK-wide target of planting 90 to 120 million trees a year in every year between now and 2050. So I don't know whether million's enough, but let's get going and see if we can build it up. Not just East Hampshire District Council, but all of us. Secondly, we're proposing a public campaign to persuade people to buy locally produced food where they can, and by cutting out waste to buy less food overall. Do you know that in the developed world, we waste over half the food we produce, and much of it goes back into landfill and produces a great deal of methane? For a campaign like this to work, it will need everybody locally to be involved, local authorities, businesses, networks of farmers, supermarkets, climate action networks, farmers markets, food banks, and many more. And thirdly, we did really want, like other groups, to find a way of getting everybody involved. And we looked around, and there are quite a number of towns and villages in our district that are really activating the local community to take some action on public and private land. And that is what we are seeking to do. Our challenge is to every parish and town council in the district to lead community action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this can be anything from reducing mowing in the playing fields and the churchyards and gardens, eliminating pesticides, going peat-free completely in a village, changing over from petrol to electric mowers, planting trees and hedges. There's a full list in our full report. These are small steps, but they add up, and the more people that take them, the more it multiplies up, and then people start noticing. The point is to get the whole community involved. Finally, none of this will happen unless it is led and supported. And we believe that is the job of our local councils. And so here are our asks for East Hampshire District Council. But the key word here is leadership. It's the activation of everybody. It's the leadership of some of these initiatives. It's not, the council will never have enough resource to do everything, but it can bring people together and activate others to do things. We do think there needs to be more resource in the central team. I heard Jill say she's going to get everybody in the council trained up. That's great. But I think there needs to be more than one person working 2 days a week on climate change in the central team. Secondly, we do think there needs to be a community hub, an information point, a focal point for people to exchange information and to find out about good ideas, and actually to find out real, reliable information about what they can do. Thirdly, we need the council to set an example. We heard Jill describing what it was doing. That should include buying food locally. And linked to this, fourthly, we want you to use your planning powers, and we accept you need some more, to protect and promote a green environment. South Downs National Park Authority do put landscape and ecosystems at the heart of its planning policies. We ask East Hampshire District Council to do the same. Because this is what it looks like when the green environment is forgotten and tarmac is king. It doesn't have to be like that, even in a station car park, you know. Finally, these are two quotes from our report. These were written before Greta Thunberg in Milan last week talked about blah, blah, blah. One of the things we found out as we were doing our work is that there are too many reports, there are too many strategies, there's too many discussion groups and conferences. Mind you, we're adding them to them today. All the local action proposed in this report could start now. It needs to start now, not next year, not 2030, not 2050, now.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Colin Channon up on stage to come and compare a Q&A session, and the three chairmen of the three panels to join him in the Q&A session.
Hi there. Everybody here okay? We've only got 5 minutes for some questions, but I know most of us here would agree with most of the recommendations made by the three action groups. But I'm here to be deliberately provocative. So when you hear the questions, please don't boo and throw things on the stage, because that's the job that I'm here to do. If we can start with transport. Town centres at the moment are fighting back after COVID. They're struggling. They say it'll take years to fight back. One of the recommendations from the transport group is to cut the number of town centre parking spaces, charge more for those parking spaces, to discourage people from coming into town centres. Are you not accelerating the demise of our town centres with those recommendations?
Okay, we're not trying to discourage people from coming into town centres. We're trying to encourage them to come in greener, better ways. So the idea is that, yes, they would still use the car parks, but they wouldn't actually park in areas of the town centre, the high streets, where they actually get in the way of people on their feet, people on their bikes, trying to enjoy a sociable life in the town centre. So it's trying to create sociable town centres with all the facilities so that people can actually enjoy them, and we don't get vehicles getting in their way of actually in doing so.
But if you're pushing shoppers to out-of-town car parks, they'll just say, I won't come into the town centre, I'll go to an out-of-town shopping centre where I can park next to the shops.
Well, not when there's a petrol crisis on, they won't, I don't think, somehow. But I know that's not really the answer. I mean, the towns we have in East Hants anyway, they're small towns. Most of the town is walkable to the town centre. And so for those who are fit, those who are able, and that's the people that we're saying this to, we would like you, please, to get out of your cars, unless you've got a great big trolley's worth of shopping, obviously, but choose the time you go, be careful, but don't actually disrupt the pedestrian life of what should be a pleasant, lovely place to actually be, with more coffee shops, tables on the footway areas, all the issues that actually can make a town a happy place to live in. That's where we're trying to go.
Right. If we can go on to buildings, you're asking for house builders, what you want them to have the highest energy and sustainability standards when they build new homes. That will cost more. One thing we know for sure is that the builders aren't going to take the hit of the extra costs. They're going to pass it on to the person buying the homes. Young people already can't buy homes here because it's too expensive. Are we saying we forget young people, they'll never get on the housing ladder because we want sustainable homes and they'll cost more?
Well, I think the issue here isn't about value and cost. It's about quality and the way that the buildings respond to the environment. Now, if house developers had proper and really well-designed houses that took into account all the issues that you need to do to make them more environmentally friendly. And that's not only the way they're constructed, but the way that they are orientated, the way they relate to sunlight, the way they relate to trees, the way they're shaded from north winds. They can use... So it's a design process that they need to go through. They've got to increase the environmental standards that the buildings do. And they've got to be able to heat them using renewable sources. It's acknowledged that they probably cost about 8% more to build, but in terms of the value of that, we did in our group discuss about how people funded that, and you have to take away this issue that the building costs so much and they don't take into account how much it costs to run. You know, if you buy on a mortgage for 25 years a house that costs 8% more, yet it costs 50% less to run, you're going to be in a better position. So you've got to change people's mindset to about how they use their buildings and what their buildings do and perform.
Right, thank you. Again, on farming, the Climate Change Committee recommending a 20% reduction in the consumption of meat and dairy. So apart from upsetting McDonald's, are they seriously considering that we become a nation of vegans and vegetarians?
Well, that, of course, wasn't one of the recommendations of our action group.
It was in your report. So
we reported that the Climate Change Committee was reporting that. The government hasn't accepted that recommendation, of course, and we didn't... there was no way in which our group was going to be able to agree that point. What is interesting is that people are eating less meat, both for their health and because of the climate. That's happening. There's another report on the BBC today about that. And there's certainly quite a number of members of our group who feel that there should be an active campaign by the government to do that. But the government doesn't want to do that for the moment. So we said, well, let's go for buying local. We have high quality food produced in the UK with some of the lowest emissions in the world. So let's make consumers more aware of what they're eating and where it's from and what the impact on the climate is of that, and let them then make their choices. We also made a parallel recommendation. It's so important, this, to try to reduce waste. That, of course, there's a win-win-win there. You buy less, it costs less, you save money, you help the climate. But unfortunately, we all have good intentions, but then we clear out our fridge and throw all sorts of stuff away. It goes into landfill and lots of methane comes off. So buy local and buy less.
And one for each of you probably is you all say we should reduce tarmac, reduce hard standing in the front of our homes, but not everyone has a large garden with a nice tree and plenty of space to put their cars. You've also emphasised very much so that electric cars are the way ahead. If we can't have hard standing outside our homes to put the electric cars on, is East Hampshire going to become every evening a network of extension leads running from people's homes to their cars parked on the street? What's the answer to that?
Well, it looks like it's me then. Fine, okay, all right. I mean, this is clearly one of the major problems. And I don't think technology has come up with the answers yet. And so we are moving on, and we're moving on fast. The way things are changing is actually fantastic. The research being done on all sorts of issues, that's marvellous. But I think to get it going, I think we're going to find those houses that already have the facilities, the drive next to the house, they can charge up their car, those are likely to be the ones that go for purchasing a zero
electric vehicle first, because let's face it, we can't churn them out fast enough that everybody could have one quickly anyway. It is a long process. It's going to take many years. And during that time, I think we've actually got to then hope, I have to say, that charging up the electric vehicles where you haven't got access to your house with your vehicle, we've got to resolve that problem somehow. And I don't know, but it may well be that even some of the cars are then hydrogen cars rather than electric, because that is one solution. The chap who owns JCB, for instance, has actually been saying hydrogen cars are a real possibility, and that they've got the technology, and you could turn up at your service station, and instead of putting normal petrol diesel in, you could charge it with hydrogen or electricity. So we don't know, but technology is going, and let's hope they get there fast enough.
I think one of the things about people concreting over their front gardens is something that's been going on for a long time. But you don't need to concrete over it to keep it as a sustainable surface. You can use permeable paving, you can design and use landscaping around that so that the cars get encompassed within that. It's a design solution that can enable cars to be parked in those locations, to have their charges, but also for it to be a private realm of quality rather than just a tarmac or concrete surface. There's lots of ways of doing it, but people need to have the knowledge, the ideas, and the guidance to be able to do that.
I very much agree with that, and but the important thing about what we were saying was, let's try and get people thinking about what they can do. Let's not tell them what they can't. Let's get them thinking about, all right, they may need to put a car on their drive and they may need hard standing for it, but what else can they do to their garden? Do they have to take the hedge up? Couldn't they plant some trees? Maybe they have a back garden or a side garden. I mean, it's about design, but it's also about people thinking for themselves about what they can do. Yes, to meet their needs, which are realistic needs, but then also to make their small contribution to climate action. So it's changing the mindset. We can't keep telling people what they can't do. We have to help them to find what they can.
Okay. Last one, before we get the red card thrown at us again, is whenever you read anything in either your favourite local paper or the national papers, councils, governments say there's no money. Both on all your reports, you want incentives for farmers, you want the dedicated climate emergency team at East Hampshire for a week instead of a permanent one instead of 2 days a week. You want grant funding for various schemes. There is no money in the pot. So how do we move forward? And whoever would like to try to answer that one, because that's the big question that we'd want to know is how can we afford it? It's going to cost money.
Well, there's always money. It's just a question of what you spend it on, isn't it? It's about priorities. And frankly, this is one of the things that completely frustrates me. It is a climate emergency. The council says so. The national government says so. So, in my view, if it's an emergency, you have to do what is needed. And that means probably spending money. It's not just about spending money. Just take farming. There's huge amount of money already spent on what was the common agricultural policy. It's now run forward. So it is actually not about spending more, it's about using that money in a different way. So it's not always about spending more. Sometimes it is, but not always.
I think the good example of that was when the pandemic came along. And I remember saying to my daughters that this is the precursor to the climate emergency. That's nothing compared to what's going to happen to the world if we don't deal with it. Yet we were able to find the money to do all the things to get through the pandemic. And it is a seed change in the way people think about how they use money and the quality of their lives and the quality of what their environment is around them. Because in the end, if their environment is really high quality, they will be happier, more fulfilled people. So you've got to change that attitude towards money and finance so that it's a positive thing rather than a negative thing.
Well, I'm glad I'm the third one on this question, I have to say. Yes, there is always money. I think partly it's what do people spend their money on is clearly one thing as well. And if you know that with climate emergency, you have got to try and change things, do things, whether it's the electric car, borrowing money, some people will be able to take a route. And at the end of the day, the only thing you can say is this is an emergency. And in an emergency, you get out there and you find an answer. And I'm sorry that doesn't really give a nice, clear parcel to actually put this one down into. But if it's an emergency, by golly, the world has to act.
Thank you. So sorry there was so little time today. The Council and Damien Hines have both said there will be plenty of follow-up sessions, there'll be discussions, there'll be forums for you all to have much more of a say. But for now, to the three chairs, thank you very much.
I'm afraid no. I'm going to invite you to come up and ask a question afterwards. We tried to pack a huge amount in today, and if we let one person speak, we've got to let everyone speak. So I thank you very much for the question. I'm going to carry on speaking. We're going to move. Thank you very much. I'm going to say thank you to... I'm going to say thank you to our three chairmen for their fantastic work. You can understand why we've been very engaged with them. I'd like to thank Colin for his comparing. We have a huge amount to get through, and we have got some very important videos to see from local school children. At this point, I would like to invite all the schools, all 6 of the schools who are going to be speaking, to come up on stage. We have got 2 videos to show you, that you've got 5 minutes to do it, to come up. So we've got 2 videos to show you, one of which is going to be from ACAN Youth, one of which is going to be from Bentley Primary School. And if the schools can come up, and I know there's going to be a lot of you, and we'll try and get through 6 school presentations to talk about what local schools and the school children are doing and what they hope to be able to do. So I'm going to show 2 videos. The first one is by a member of ACAN Youth. The second one is by Bentley Primary School.
We like to tell ourselves we're doing enough. After all, it's not our fault the planet is dying. We're not the ones pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Oh no, it's not us. And anyway, it's the little things we do that count. But I'll let you in on a little secret. We're lying to ourselves. It's not enough. Fires run wild across our planet, burning it. Floods pour across our planet, drowning it. All whilst we pump gases into the atmosphere and pledge that we will do better tomorrow, in 5 years' time, in 25 years' time. We don't have time for anything other than action. In July of 2019, East Hampshire District Council declared a climate emergency, and I am impressed by their goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. I am impressed by the goal of planting 120,000 trees, 1 for each resident. I am impressed by our nation's limitation of fossil fuel sourced energy to 39%. I will not say just 39%, however, as this is still not carbon neutrality. I am impressed by the efforts of individuals to become more environmentally conscious, to use reusable bags and to cut out single-use plastics, to power their homes with green energy and to go vegetarian or even vegan. But it's not enough, and it never will be. It is terrifying for me as a young person to see and hear nothing about the prevention of the climate crisis unless I go looking for information. And sometimes I don't even learn anything then. I have almost no power. I cannot vote, I cannot become a councillor or a member of parliament. In fact, I'm almost completely reliant on you, the policymakers and voters, to do what is best for me, To know that I am going to die, potentially decades before my time, and to be able to do nothing about it is terrifying. And it is because of this that I will not ask for the policies over the plans, for the actions over the arguing. I will demand. I demand that you push yourselves harder and strive for political action. Plant the trees, cut the fossil fuel supply, make all public transportation electric. Do the things you know need to be done, but have been putting off because you believe them to be too difficult or too harsh. Make use of whatever power you have for the ones who haven't got any at all.
Since January, we have been participating in the Surfaced Against Sewage Plastic Free Schools Award. We started this award because we were worried about single-use plastic and litter.
Single-use plastic can end up as litter on our own street, and this can end up in the oceans like this.
We want to stop single-use plastic to help reduce the litter on our streets and the plastic in our oceans. So how are we doing this?
We have 5 jobs which we have to do, and so far we have done 3 of them.
Our first job was to set up a action group to do an assembly.
Then we did a little bit called the trash mob. We collected litter from our school grounds and the wreck, where we sometimes do PE.
It made us very sad to see this litter.
Our next job was to write to our MP, Damien Hines, to ask for his support.
He wrote us a really nice letter telling us what the government is doing.
We are looking forward to meeting Damien Hines in November.
Our next job is to write to 3 companies who use single-use plastics. We have started to write a list with help from our friends at school.
Our final job is to ban 3 items in school which use single-use plastic.
We will ask everybody at Bentley for their ideas.
Plastic Free Schools is a great award. It's about giving power to our pupils.
Thank you for listening to our videos. Power to the pupils! Bye!
So the way this is going to work, each of the schools, I believe, has some slides. We've gone through them. Good luck with them. You've got a few minutes each. I think it's 1 speaker from each school, but if 2 of you want to share it, you're obviously welcome to do that. The order of the schools is Amory Hill, then Bedales, then Churches, then Bohunt, then Alton, then TPS. Good luck. I've got a clicker. Left is backwards, right is forwards. So if the first school, Amory Hill, wants to come up, whoever that's going to be, have the ticker and enjoy your talk.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Autumn.
And I'm Mairead, and we are here to talk about Amory Hill School's Eco-Union. The Eco-Union was founded at Amory Hill School in 2019, inspired by Greta Thunberg's powerful speeches about climate change.
Our biggest focus has been on recycling. It's so easy to unknowingly or accidentally put the wrong items in the recycling bins. For example, did you know that a paper bag or piece of cardboard that your food has been packaged in can't be recycled because it is contaminated with food? We have begun to combat this problem by setting up recycling systems on the playground with different bins for different type of waste. As well as this, we place recycling bins in each classroom which have specific clear recyclable plastic bags in them so people would know to put their recycling in these particular bins. We have also made sure to deliver assemblies to the whole school to explain to pupils and staff what things can be put in the recycling bins and where you can find them.
But the climate crisis is far bigger than just reducing our waste and recycling as well. So as a union, we have started to create a wildlife area in the corner of the school field, hopeful that it will be a haven for wildlife, insects, animals, birds, shrubs and wildflowers. In addition to what we have mentioned so far, the Eco-Union has also achieved a number of other things, which have included winning a sponsored competition which helped us to pay for and attain green flag status,
fundraising for the victims of Australian bushfires through cake sales, which raised nearly £100.
During Fair Trade Fortnight, we drove forward the Fair Trade agenda, raising awareness for the exploitation of some farmers and their produce.
We have collected and sent crisp packets and other non-recyclable waste to TerraCycle to revert them back into raw materials. While this has not been possible more recently, it's something we would like to continue in the future.
On the 8th of October 2022, we supported and took part in activities in Clean Air Day, the largest air pollution campaign in the UK. On this day, students were encouraged to take more sustainable forms of transport to school, such as the bus, walking some or all the way to school, or cycling. There was also a competition on Clean Air Day for the most number of steps walked won by our own Eco-Union member, Ben.
But as we have mentioned briefly earlier, our greatest achievement was earning our green flag status last academic year, which flies high outside our school.
We are very proud to be part of the team that helped gain this award for our school, and are very thankful to the students who went before us but who started the Eco-Union and the process to gaining the award.
As we walk out the school, the Eco School's green flag is a regular reminder of what the Eco-Union has achieved, while telling everyone else who walks by our school that our community is actively thinking and engaging in protecting our planet.
Thank you for listening to us today, and we hope that what we are doing will help to inspire other schools and colleges to follow in this change and set up similar groups to help combat the climate crisis.
Thank you.
Next is Speedales. You got some slides, don't you?
Yeah. We do.
Hi, I'm Amelia.
And I'm Nina.
Today we're going to be talking to you about what BDLs is doing to combat the climate crisis.
As a school, we would like to eventually achieve net zero, which we would be aiming to do by 2040.
BDLs has set out 3 scopes which we'll be acting upon in order to reduce our effects on the environment.
Scope 1 is emissions from heating and vehicles, as this accounts for 39% of our total emissions, plus another 10% for getting the oil and LPG from well to tank.
We will be reducing this by changing our heating and oil infrastructure from oil and LPG to ground source heat pumps or other green energy sources as the technology improves.
The next major development would be after we change our old sports hall into assembly hall. This will enable us to remove the current oil heating for the building around the old gym, and we will be putting in ground source heating pumps instead.
Scope 2 is reducing electricity consumption. This accounts for 13% of our total CO2 emissions, although all of our electricity is already procured through green sources.
The next step would be to invest in solar PVs so we can generate more electricity for ourselves, which will take place this year.
Scope 3 includes water usage, travel and commuting, and procured goods.
Our Beadles estate already has a lot of trees, so we may be offsetting much of our CO2 emissions that way already.
Dan and ER Pre-Prep have decided to sponsor a polar bear as their endangered animal of the year.
There have also been many other school projects discussing the impacts of climate change, as well as a few independent research reports delving deeper into the issues of sustainability within the fashion industry. From the COP26 conference, we would be hoping that businesses get more support from the government, as moving to greener initiatives requires large amounts of investment and many companies may not have the capacity to do so.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next we have churches.
Hello, we're Churches College and we're here to talk about what we've been doing to help with the climate at our school. Our third year have been rewilding a patch of land down by our netball courts. This will hopefully create a space for wildlife to live within the school grounds. These pictures are just before and planting and a month later. they've also been making eco-bricks out of plastic bottles filled with plastic waste, which we will use to build the walls of some flower beds, reducing plastic waste we send to landfills and hopefully mitigating against exhaust emissions on the nearby busy road.
Our new building, the Goodfields Centre, is built from sustainably sourced materials. Most of the energy that it needs also comes from the solar panels which cover the roof. It's also fitted with air source heat pumps, which we have also put in place in all of our older buildings.
We've recently revamped our in-school recycling provision so that every student is involved in emptying recycling bins. That way, every student feels like they're involved and doing something for the environment. In addition to paper, we're also recycling crisp packets and dental products through TerraCycle.
Our current second year are engaged in surveying how people travel to school and what the air quality is like in our school site. We're concerned that school pick-up and drop-off may contribute to poor air quality in the area. We have been using plume flow monitors to monitor fluctuations in air quality and researching the most polluting types of vehicle.
We are also hoping to achieve the Green Flag Award in the future. The scheme recognises and rewards well-managed green spaces, setting a great example for other schools, parks, organisations across the UK and around the world. At Churches, the eco-teacher, Mr. Osterson, is leading our efforts towards the Green Flag Award. He has a wealth of brilliant ideas and is currently focusing on water usage at present.
In the future, we hope to improve air quality by increasing the number of plants we have inside and outside. We also hope one day to be pesticide-free and to increase the number of wild spaces and ponds to encourage wildlife to thrive on school grounds. As part of our 300-year anniversary, we plan for each student to plant a tree on site. Thank you so much for listening.
And next we have bow hunt.
Hello, we're from Bow Hunt School and we'll be talking to you about what our school's been doing to combat climate change. So first of all, reducing waste in our school is a big area of continuous development. Currently in the sixth form, we have recycling bins in each classroom. We have lots of water fountains to promote the use of reusable bottles. And we also have money off hot drinks if you bring reusable coffee cups in to get the drinks.
Ooh, that worked. So in order to help protect biodiversity at Bow Hunt, we record the current variety of species on campus. We do this through wildlife and habitat surveys, studying invertebrates, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. In the 2020 to 2021 survey, Bow Hunt looked at 5 different habitats on the school site. We found that the areas with least disturbance had the highest biodiversity record. We will be repeating the survey this year to manage the changes in the environment. Furthermore, we found that the areas we left unattended had the vastest amount of biodiversity.
In sixth form currently, when it was we have installed solar panels on the roof, and there's also an energy monitor that links with that in sixth form, and they've also installed the lights automatically turn off when there hasn't been motion in there for a while.
Bow Hunt School has a large catchment area, resulting in challenges when it comes to the reduction of carbon emissions from transport to and from the school. In the last year, there has been an increase in those travelling to school by train.
However, there's still lots to do. We have formed a committee across all year groups to help us work towards a brighter future. Our students will work with our teachers to make our school more ecological and improve our learning environment. We will specifically focus on reducing litter, such as plastic bottles, by introducing more opportunities to recycle, encouraging teachers to use less paper, and of course reducing our energy use across school, which we will monitor. At Bowhunt, we see climate change as a threat. And at Bowhunt, we also see that by working together, we can achieve the impossible. Thank you very much.
And next we have Alton.
Hi, I'm Poppy and I'm in Year 10 at Alton. I want to tell you about how we're using art to change people's attitudes towards the environmental issues we are all facing. This year, the Big Draw Festival has the theme, Make the Change. Using drawing to communicate our ideas and expressing how we can live in balance with the world around us. Starting this week, across the whole school, we are each designing a butterfly to be a symbol of change. These will then be displayed across school. You will see some examples of our butterflies on our exhibition stand. Also displayed on our stand is the dress that I made as an extended learning project. My inspiration for this was the waste and pollution that the fashion industry are generating. By making a dress entirely out of recycled plastic, I wanted to show two things. Just how much plastic we use, but also how that plastic can be reused positively. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rose and I'm a Year 9 at Alton School. I often find it frustrating that people can be so ignorant about the damage we are causing to our environment. We talk a lot about the issues going on around us, but we need to actually begin to take action. I recently did a project at school called The State of Our Planet. This gave me the opportunity to do some research and suggest some ideas about what more we could be doing. I hope that the global attention that the COP26 event will attract will really make a difference. In our lower school, we have a team of eco-warriors who are leading the way in making positive changes in school and also helping to make a difference in the community. They did a litter pick recently in Anstey Park last term and are looking forward to more activities this year. Some representatives have been on our exhibition stand this afternoon. I hope you've had a chance to meet them. Thank you.
And finally, the Petersfield School.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm the Eco Ambassador at TPS, the Petersfield School, and I'd like to talk to you today about what we're doing to combat climate change at TPS. At TPS, we are well aware of the terrible dangers and challenges that Earth is facing every day. Therefore, we are proud to be part of the Let's Go Zero campaign, which is instrumental in our bid to become carbon zero by 2030. In 2017, we created Eco Club, a place where students can take part in projects which endeavour to reduce the school's carbon emissions alongside their peers. One thing we are passionate about conserving at TPS is the biodiversity around our school site. Even though our school grounds are not the largest, we've been resourceful and made use of every green space. Restoring our allotment to our fullest potential, we have planted fruit trees, vegetables and herbs. We already notice a difference in the number of insects we see, such as bees. We have built several raised beds and patches of wildflowers, and to provide a deliberate and valuable habitat for bugs and bees, there are several piles of wood. A few years ago, we planted 250 wild trees at the bottom of the field. We have realised that respecting and protecting existing habitats is just as important as creating new ones. Therefore, we frequently hold litter picks in the adjacent water meadows to the school. We have big aspirations for the future. This week, we have begun to replace every single light bulb in a whole school initiative to switch to LED lighting. We are also exploring the idea of having solar panels. Both projects aim to reduce our carbon footprint and use energy more efficiently. Our current programmes, such as the Fast Fashion programme and the Green Canteen, reflect our growing concerns with waste and recycling. Together, we will be the one who leads our country into this uncertain future. As a school, we must believe in the significance of our Eco Club, and we all must remember what Greta Thunberg has said: no one is too small to make a difference. Thank you.
It's been a genuine pleasure listening to these people speak, and I thank you all very much for coming along, for engaging with the process, and I hope everyone in the audience will give them a very big round of applause, because I think that's sometimes quite frightening, standing up with a microphone and speaking, but I think you all did extremely well, and thank you very much for your insights and what your schools are doing. So, as we are slightly behind time due to the excellent input from our students today, I'm going to move right along. The next step is focusing on what local government is able to do. I want to do one other thing. Say thank you to the teachers who brought them here today. I think that was an awful amount of effort for you to bring the children today to engage with us at our community COP. So thank you to the teachers who were able to bring the school children with them today. So thank you. The next step is I'm going to show a quick video from Hampshire County Council. Hampshire County Council haven't been able to send an officer along today. You should be aware, if you're looking for information on climate change, Hampshire County Council published its first ever climate change annual report on Tuesday, ahead of it being discussed at the Cabinet next Tuesday. So anyone looking for the detail, there's a huge amount of detail on the Hampshire County Council website about HCC's climate action. I should also point out that I'm a county councillor, there are 3 others of the 6 of us from East Hampshire who are here today, so we've got 4 of the 6 county councillors for East Hampshire represented this meeting today. So I'm going to show the video, and then we're going to have a panel discussion between members of the local council, which Steve Hunt is going to compare rather than listen to me do. So we're going to have a presentation for 2 minutes from HCC, then presentations from Alton Town Council, EHDC and the National Park, and then we're going to have Steve Hunt, our climate champion, compare a question and answer session. So this is the HCC video, I hope.
Hello, I'm Councillor Jan Warwick, the Executive Member for Climate Change at Hampshire County Council. Hampshire County Council declared a climate change emergency in 2019, joining more than 70 local authorities and other organisations right across the country in committing to put environmental issues at the heart of everything it does, and aligning to the national government commitment of net zero carbon by 2050. The County Council has set 2 ambitious targets which apply to the County Council and to Hampshire as a whole. Firstly, to be carbon neutral by 2050, and secondly, to prepare to be resilient to the impact of a 2 degrees Celsius temperature rise. Work is underway, which includes fitting energy-efficient measures to hundreds of public buildings, piloting on-street electrical vehicle charging, and working with partners and communities to support climate change action. The first annual report on progress made on climate change will be presented to Cabinet this month. It will set out what we've achieved over the past year, since the climate change strategy was approved in July 2020. It includes information on how we've embedded climate change across everything we do at Hampshire County Council, and includes highlights and case studies showcasing best practice in reducing emissions and building resilience across key sectors. For COP26, the County Council is hosting a 2-day event in Queen Elizabeth Country Park, just before the start of COP26 on the 1st of November. The first day will be business-focused, whilst the second day will be for residents, showcasing the work Hampshire is doing with communities on climate change and helping people understand how they can do their bit, both in terms of reducing emissions and building resilience. Next year, our theme will be the Year of Resilience, and the County Council is planning a community preparation event designed to give guidance and support to Hampshire communities to become safer, more resilient, and better prepared for extreme weather events.
Thank you very much for the video from Hampshire. Unfortunately, they weren't able to send a representative along today, but we do have representatives from the South Downs National Park with us today, Andrew Lee, and we have Jane Devlin, of course, our 2-day-a-week, but very excellent And it's her day off today, so that's dedication. And of course, we have the town clerk from Alton Town Council, Leah Coney, with us today as well. First of all, I'd just like to invite Andrew Lee, if you'd like to say a few words on behalf of the 57% of East Hampshire. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, yeah, there's the people.
Oops, good afternoon. There we go. Right. Alton Town Council resolved to declare its climate emergency on the 31st of October 2019. So what have we done since then? The key focus for us has been partnership working with colleagues, particularly at Energy Alton and ACAN. Their expertise has been invaluable, but the real strength of this relationship has been their reach into the community. Councils can do their part in driving programmes forward and can be effective in doing this. But what is more effective is working with our community. We cannot stand alone. We are certainly stronger when we come together with everybody. Examples of this so far have been the Eco Fair that we had this summer, Plastic Free Alton, which we have signed up to literally in the last month, Refill Alton, and initiatives such as the Repair Cafe, Community Share, our themed markets, including Reuse and Recycle, and our Shop Local messaging. So early in 2020, we created our strategy and action plan, the action plan being the key. This is the doing bit for us rather than the talking, and containing measurable targets. So our aims are twofold. First of all, decarbonising our own estate, so that looks at retrofitting, our procurement processes, new build construction for new community facilities, and our own practices, particularly with our grounds team and vehicles. And then secondly, encouraging the wider community to take action. Oops. So that means some higher profile activities to help grab some messaging in the local media. On your left is, I think, Councillor Titterington and Councillor Boxall undertaking some tree planting at the lower field, which was undertaken with Red Row Homes. And on the right is the website for our plastic-free community on the Refill Alton website. But we're also working on interlinking projects which promote the green economy and promote the town itself together, so tying in tourism, health and well-being, and climate change challenges. I'm trying to make this really quick. We will also seek to influence decision makers in the adoption and promotion of policies to provide sustainable alternatives to traditional construction, infrastructure and transport models. What does this actually mean? This means working with developers and planners and public transport providers and highways authorities. As an example, we know there's a central government policy which says that installing 20-mile-an-hour limits is about reducing accident and collision rates and is not to do with lowering emissions. We have huge challenges ahead in trying to lobby and to make these changes happen, but we are up for that challenge, and thank you for listening.
So I'll try and get the order right now. Next up is Jane Devlin. Yes.
Hello everybody, my name's Jane Devlin, and the reason why you're all here today is because we had this little germ of an idea in January and it's all happened, so I'm really pleased. The purpose of this panel really was to talk about how the different levels of local government can work together. So, I don't know, can I click? You'll notice that we've just had, what Alton is doing, and it's fantastic, but actually in East Hampshire we have 42 parishes and towns. So there's a vast number of people involved in local government, people like Leah who are doing their own initiatives. We've also got Hampshire County Council and of course half the district, more than half the district by area, is covered by the South Downs National Park Authority, which of course is the planning authority for that area. So the point that I really want to make here is that actually it's quite a complicated system, and you might be aware that, you know, Hampshire do libraries and roads, and East Hampshire do planning, climate change, housing, all sorts of things, but they all interface together in a way which is, you know, I've been in local government now for 5 years, and it still makes me think, how does that work? So my first point really is that what we do really matters, and the way we do it together really matters. So this next slide is to do with what we've done at East Hampshire District Council, and I'm sure you're all aware that we've decided that we need to reduce carbon emissions, and the yellow bit is our own emissions from our own operations, which I think somebody's already said is tiny, but it's worth doing because it's a leadership role. The second element is what we can bring to bear through our policy making and influence, and our Chief Executive talked about how we can be leaders and, for instance, the planning system to lobby for more mandate to do what we need to do in our own area. So that's the second thing. And then the light blue on that side of the slide, right, is all to do with biodiversity and looking after our natural environment. And I would echo, I'm sure you're going to talk about ecosystem services. If you're not, it's really important that the ecosystem services that we have responsibility for, everybody that is, actually are our life support system. So whatever we do, we must look after those. There's a bit missing there. There's all the bits underneath those, which is all the priorities. But actually this diagram, I wanted it to be a jigsaw puzzle because it's really important that we fit everything together, and things that influence one of these things must be picked up and shared by others. So, for instance, our local plan and our climate and environment and the way we do regeneration must all fit together and support. The policies must be mutually supportive. And that's not just for us, but with all those other authorities and South Downs and so on. So I'm not going to go through this slide, Councillor Makata, you'll be pleased to know, but this is my wish list of how I think we could do things better. And this information will be available online, and there will be opportunities for you to debate this in the future, hosted by our climate champion, Councillor Steve Hunt. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jane. I'll keep this very short because you're the activists in this room, you're the people actually doing the work, and the job of authorities like ours at the National Park is to support you and to facilitate and enable. For us, that means 118,000 people resident in the park. It means 176 parishes, 900 farmers, and about 8,000 small and micro businesses. So we have our own strategy and targets like everybody else, but we can just have too much targetry, so I'm not even going to talk about that. What are we actually trying to do? Well, we're trying to focus in on where we can actually have some influence and actually help and support. So 5 key areas. One is net zero with nature. There is a massive opportunity over the next few years, as you heard today, to have forms of farming, land management and recreation of biodiversity which lock up carbon and reduce emissions as well. We've launched a Renature campaign and are working at national level as well through national parks in terms of funding mechanisms for these new projects. We would like to see 13,000 hectares of the national park renatured by 2030. That sort of fits in with national targets. That's the area the size of Worthing, by the way, if anyone cares. Supporting communities and parishes, absolutely fundamental. One of the things we did when we put our strategy together was work with Community Energy South, who are an absolute dynamo powerhouse of resources and ideas for supporting communities across the whole of the southeast of England. And I'm pleased to say that they are now supporting 5 projects, including Pecan in Petersfield, but projects right across the national park, literally from Winchester over to Plumpton, to put community energy pathways together so they can actually, these communities can work out step by step what it is they can do, where the emissions are coming from, what they can do to tackle them. That's the second thing. The third thing is supporting farmers and land managers directly. We're rolling out the Farm Carbon Cutting Toolkit, that's always hard to say on a Friday afternoon, which is a national toolkit for farmers in the South Downs, particularly through farmers' clusters, so that that can pave the way for action at farm level. And we are now implementing a scheme called Farming in Protected Landscapes. So for any farmers in East Hampshire who are in the park or right on the edge of the park, you can benefit now from direct grant funding through the Park Authority from DEFRA. Thank you, DEFRA. This is for all national parks and AONBs, and one of the 4 objectives of that scheme is action on climate and carbon or greenhouse gas emissions. So that scheme is up and running. We've already allocated 200,000 to projects this year, so it's in full swing. Supporting businesses, my colleague Mark is at the back here. Go and talk to him afterwards. We're developing a small business network, our South Downs, an venturised partnership for the small and micro businesses across the national park. And one of the first, that project is being led and developed by a panel of businesses. So it's by businesses for businesses with our help. And one of the first things that group wants to tackle is how we enable these smaller businesses to take action on climate change and carbon emissions. It's easier if you're a big company and you've got a whole department and toolkit behind it. But this is a small businesses. And finally, enabling low carbon development. I can only agree with what everyone said earlier about the planning system and the ability we have as local planning authorities to go beyond things like building regulations. I was involved years ago with the Code for Sustainable Homes, which tried to do exactly that with government and was then scrapped. So sometimes these things feel like they've gone round in a big circle. But what we are trying to do is implementing our local plan through our design guide, which you heard a little bit about earlier, the Sustainable Construction SPD, and also by practical monitoring of the carbon implications of every planning decision we make. Both in terms of adaptation, the kind of developments that are being enabled, but also in terms of emission reduction as well. So those are a few things, and we're also working, as always, with every other public body, because we each have different strengths and different areas of expertise here. For instance, we're not the experts, or we don't have the powers and duties on building retrofit or on transport, for example. So all of these things are designed to help farmers, land managers, businesses, communities and parishes in and on the edge of the national park, and to spread good practice and get things moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to everybody for their presentations today. One thing that the public always ask me is, what are the council going to do about it? And people don't seem to really appreciate what the different levels of local government we have are and do, and how they interact together. So I'd like to ask the panelists today some questions, mainly based on how the different levels of local government can interact best together. So the first question to all the panelists is, what initiatives are coming from each authority that they think work best across the different levels of local government?
I seem to have got the microphone, so do you mind if I start? And I'll obviously pass it round. But, well, I think what I was trying to illustrate is we're not all experts in the same things, are we? So from our point of view in the National Park Authority, we know where our strengths lie, which is in our relationships with our parishes and communities, small businesses, and particularly farmers and land managers, and the connection between taking action on carbon and taking action on biodiversity. So we want to really put our weight behind those things and work with other partners who can tackle the other absolutely essential parts of the jigsaw, because tackling climate change is such a vast range of action needed now. When
when we were given this question, I did say I'm going to struggle with this answer because at the moment the tiers of local authority don't necessarily work well together, and we struggle. We find there's a wall of bureaucracy sometimes which really prevents us from actually doing the doing bit rather than the talking bit. And for example, today, this is great that we've all come together and we're all talking about what we're going to do, but we're not actually out there doing, we're talking. So I think the message that needs to go back to central government is make it easier for us to be able to work together. And I better stop there.
Can I just echo that? So there's things like, if you've got a neighbourhood plan, you get more funding from development contributions. But to apply, you have to apply for that. But the timetable, you have a deadline, but that doesn't always fit in with, for instance, the procurement of what you want to purchase, which has to be overseen by another level in the jigsaw puzzle. So I would echo that, certainly. One thing that you said, which I'd like to, I've got no new ideas myself, maybe I have, but one of the things that I would like to see done better across each of the different tiers is what do we measure, why do we measure it, and can we use the same method for reporting? So I don't know yet how I am going to make sure that the progress that we're making is being monitored and we've got the right metrics in place so that we can be accountable for what we're doing. And if we all had the same methodology for what we're doing, we would then be able to say, well, I've done it a bit like this, what about you? And actually I think that's probably a coordinating role for Hampshire County Council. I'm sorry to say they're not here to respond, but that's, certainly that's one thing. The second thing that I would be very keen to improve is this idea of enforcement. So, let's make sure that we get a better mandate to do things to a higher standard for the climate and environment, but also let's have the resources so that we can actually enforce that progress. Thank you.
Keep the microphone because there's going to be some more questions.
We're going to lose Leah in a moment.
Okay.
So should we let her speak next?
Okay. I was just going to make one suggestion. That you're talking about metrics just then, and I noted that BDELS did a most excellent job of working out where all their emissions were coming from. So perhaps actually we could learn from the schools on that across all the levels of local government. So finally. Leah, you've said that there have been some problems. What obstacles would you like to see removed from cooperation?
Oh, I don't know about removing the obstacles, but some of the issues where we are struggling. So I think I spoke briefly in my presentation about things like 20-mile-an-hour limits. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plan is another one where we've got a number of local priorities. I know Cycle Alton have been working on priorities, but we're not the Highways Authority and we're not actually able to dig into the ground. So we are waiting on other tiers of local authority to sign off before we can take action. And it does take forever. There are issues, I'm sure everyone's aware of the issues in the planning system and building regs. I think we also have to get to grips with, particularly in conservation areas and listed buildings, how we manage our heritage assets, but also attaining our green agenda at the same time. We have listed buildings, we want to put air source heat pumps in, and the two don't ever marry up. I think we have local policies on things like vendors on our open spaces not using generators. It's a really local, small policy, but it's something that we would like to see rolled out across other tiers of local authority as well. And Yeah, I could talk for hours about how many hazards and roadblocks there are, but I'm going to hand it over and then I'm going to really quietly see no one sees me slide out of the room.
Can I just say thank you so much, and next steps for you and me to have a catch-up. Thank you. Shall I carry on and I'll pick up another theme?
It's Andrew's turn to...
Is it?
To
I want to say something about cycling and walking.
About the obstacles
Okay. Yes,
between different authorities and which ones you would like to see removed in order for better cooperation.
So I'm just going to echo what Leah said about the cycling and walking infrastructure plan. We have a fantastic plan that was done and approved, and it's going to cost many millions of pounds to do. One of my key next steps would be to convene a group of, I showed a number of parish and town council logos there, but if you were to put them on a map, actually cycling from Alton to Petersfield, is that a nice journey? I don't know, I don't cycle round here, but there will be people who cycle around here and they will know where those spots are that need to be resolved. So the next step needs to be not just, if this is a conference of the parties, wouldn't it be wonderful to have local keen cyclists and walkers talking about the walking and cycling infrastructure plan and where the money's coming from and which things need to be done so that those settlements can really be joined up.
Thank you.
Okay, it's late. I'm going to be blunt here. How many highways engineers are there in the room? There's bound to be at least one. Come on. Admit it. The transport is the massive elephant in the room, isn't it? Now, I came by bus today, partly because my wife had the car. I'm not trying to be virtuous, and that was an interesting experience coming from Petersfield. It took an hour, and that was the last bus, by the way, to arrive here at 3 o'clock. It was the last bus. And it feels to me like we're doing a lot of work, all of us actually working together on walking and cycling, on promoting new routes, off-road routes for walking and cycling, miles without stiles for footpaths, all sorts of things. But there is a tidal wave going the opposite direction. It's got much worse because of COVID, so use of public transport has gone down, and we've got to find some solutions to this, and the solution is not going to lie in electric vehicles, because millions of electric vehicles are going to cause almost as many problems, apart from the direct emissions, as millions of petrol and diesel fuel vehicles. So for rural areas like this area, we've got to find some solutions to mobility that don't rely on private vehicles overwhelmingly dominating. Now, I don't know how we do that. Whether it's community transport schemes, minibuses on demand, maybe it's going to be driverless vehicles in the future, I don't know. But also, let's be blunt, we've designed every aspect of society for the last 50 years on the basis you centralise every service and then you drive to it. So, this is a really tough problem. We're nowhere near tackling that yet. So that's where we've got to go, I think.
All right, thank you very much indeed. I was going to hand over to you right now anyway.
Can I have a second little bite at that one?
No.
I've always got more to say.
No, as you say, Jane, that we can catch up and move things forward. I'm just going to hand over back to Rob now to carry on.
Thank you to the panel for that. Great. Obviously, we're short of time. We'd love to, lots of things we had today, we could have taken far more time on, but we're trying to pack in a huge amount. So I apologise for cutting short that discussion, like we cut short the previous discussion. We've next got two presentations, one from Tarina Plowright on the Greening campaign, and then a presentation by Jonathan Skurlock at the NFU's Climate Advisor.
I think what he's trying to say is thank you very much, Jane.
And I'm going to say thank you very much to Leah, who's gone, to Jane, and to Andrew, and to Steve for doing that. So hopefully Tarina's here. Hello.
Thank you. Hello there. Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak to you.
On the journey over here, which, as Andrew said, I did do by car through lack of the ability to get from Midhurst to here by public transport in any reasonable time, I was thinking that in, I think it was 2008, I gave a presentation standing exactly where I am now, about very much the same thing, and we were talking about very much the same subjects with very much the same problems, and we still didn't really have the answers. I do have to say that a lot has moved on since then, but nonetheless, we are in what we know is a climate emergency, because back then we did not take the initiative to do anything about it. What is worrying me is we have COP26. This is what this is about. And yet, when you walk out on those streets, it's invisible. It's in a few weeks' time, and you don't know it's happening. What I compare it with every single time is the football. When the football's on, there's a positive attitude, there's a way to move forward, it's visible, everybody's involved, and yet usually it's the green people and the people working in those sectors that attend conferences like this. And what we have got to do is get to the rest of the community and get everybody motivated and involved. We have got to do that, because if we don't, the government haven't got a mandate, the councils haven't got a mandate, nobody has got a mandate to really make any changes. So we have got to get people excited and to turn it into something positive. So you may think to yourself, what have I been doing since 2007? And I run something called the Greening Campaign. And back in 2007, I started this in Petersfield, and the idea was much the same as it stands today. It's about getting people motivated. We have worked with about 250 communities now, and we work right the way across Hampshire, all over the place. And we work very, very closely with Hampshire County Council, who are supporting brilliantly, I have to say, real community action. Now, the response in Petersfield and beyond was incredible back then, and it has moved. Petersfield's done really well, Alton's done really well, but there are so many communities that don't know what to do. They don't know what path to take, they're lost, and they want to do something, but they're not really sure how to move forward. So what we do is we work with councils at the lowest level, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, such as parish and town councils. And what we do is we do a campaign to get cards with answers in the windows. So we get people to do small actions, and then all over that community, when they're doing those small actions, they put the card in the window, and then it becomes visible. And here in Petersfield, right back at the beginning, you can see Waterstones put it up, cards went everywhere. Then in other places when they've run it, they put things like this up, which makes it visible in the community and gets people. There was one that put a washing line up with a load of pants on, and that stayed right up in the trees, right across the village green for ages. And then a simple message said, line dry your clothes and save carbon. And it's things like that, I think, that make people change what they do. It's things like this that children make that are visible within the community that make you, it's not a list, it's about making it visible and fun and interactive and doing it together. And it's also about letting people know that when they make changes, it has made a difference. So, for example, when a community work with us and they save a load of carbon, we try to give them something concrete that they can get into their heads what they're doing. So if, for example, they save 200 tons of CO2, a hot air balloon, believe it or not, is about a ton of CO2. So when they've made really small changes and you go, you've saved 200 tons of CO2, people go, oh. And they don't really know what that means. But if you say you've saved 200 hot air balloons worth, they suddenly go, oh, we did really, really well. So it's about making them feel proud. Now, this campaign is all about getting people to do things within their own home, to be active within their own home, but also to work with their community, whatever shape that may be. Now in Hampshire, we're working with lovely little communities, and we're also working with the, I don't mean this horribly, but places like Gosport where there isn't the money. I think I've got to stop. But I'm just going to say 3 more things. We don't just do that. We take them on a pathway. We go through, we've got packs about rewilding. We've got packs about human health, because climate change is going to have a bigger effect than COVID on our human health. And if we don't prepare for that, and if we don't plan for that, and if we don't allow people to understand the impact, we won't be able to make the differences. So just one thing I'm going to say. I know you got that red card there. If you want to know more about this, go onto the Greening Campaign website, and every single month we have a barrage of people coming on to find out what they can do with their communities. It's free to join into the discussion, and that takes place every single month, and it's listed on the Greening Campaign website. Thank you.
So, to follow that, I am Jonathan Scurlock. I am the, somewhere on the screen, there we are. Wait, yes, there we are, that's me. So I'm a former scientist, former academic and government scientist, but I was brought into the NFU to help farmers understand, what were the threats from climate change and what are we going to do about it? How can we actually make agriculture part of the solution to how we tackle climate change? I came down here from the West Midlands, where I live. I drove, but I do drive in a car which runs on vegetable oil. It is very low in its greenhouse gas emissions compared with regular diesel or petrol. The future clearly is things like electric cars, so maybe my biofuel car is a little old hat these days. But we have been trying, ladies and gentlemen, for the last 10 or 15 years to make a convincing argument about how agriculture, first of all, is, we're outdoors much of the time farming and producing food. So we're vulnerable to climate change. We're aware that climate change is happening, but clearly we believe that we can be part of the solution rather than just a problem sector of the economy that nobody really knows what to do about. So, this report, Achieving Net Zero Farmers 2040 Goal, that was published a couple of years ago, and I'm here to really tell you what we've been doing in the 2 years since that report came out. So, my colleagues here from local NFU, county advisors, James and Ben are here. So the NFU is both a national organisation, which many of you will know. You've seen Minette Batters, our president, on television rather a lot lately. She was on Question Time last night, I think. She's been on Newsnight in the past week or so. So there's an awful lot going on in farming, and this is just one of the things that we believe we can do. So 2 years ago, round about the time the government made its own legislative commitment to reaching net zero by 2050, we had already published our report saying, well, in our sector, we think we can get agriculture down to net zero on balance by 2040, 20 years from now. 10 years to do the easy stuff, another 10 years perhaps to do the harder things for which we need more technology and a little bit more support and some breakthroughs and so on. So, some of it's about renewable energy, some of it's about those histogram bars, which I'll tell you about in a little later on here. So I've got 10 slides, 10 minutes. I'm going to rattle through them very quickly. Some of this, I believe, may be available to delegates after the event, if that may be the case. I've got some nods over there in the background, yes. So, we're a large trade body. We're representing 55,000 farmer members, about half of all the farmers in the UK. Our voice does matter as the voice of agriculture, but we form all sorts of alliances as well. We are responsible for about 75% of land management in this country. We are predominantly an agricultural country. So if you're going to be tackling climate change, go and talk to a farmer, because if the solution is out there somewhere in the countryside, something that we can do will be in the hands of farmers as agents. We own over half of UK solar power capacity. It's on our agricultural buildings, which are relatively easy to fit with solar because our members own the buildings. They're not rented like a Tesco warehouse or a distribution centre or even a local authority building, dare I say. We own the building. Our members can actually make an income directly by putting their own power source onto their own buildings, or indeed often with third parties, putting wind turbines or solar farms out in the fields and getting a rent, and then carrying on doing other agricultural activities around the wind turbines and around the solar modules. So we're not swapping one kind of land use for another, we're making it multi-purpose. And certainly, we are concerned about these twin crises, climate change and biodiversity loss. So things that we've been doing, remember, this climate summit in Glasgow was supposed to be taking place last year, apart from COVID, which caused it all to get pushed back by 12 months. So we were already on the metal producing for COP26, 26 case studies of what farmers were already doing. So this is something which is downloadable from the NFU's website. I'll perhaps give you a few more links of things that you can go and look up in due course. But it's all about bringing to life our ideas. It's about having a dialogue with the media, with the general public about what farmers are doing already. It's about also trying to lead our own membership by way of example of the early adopters, the people who are already striving towards tackling climate change in their own farm business. So yes, this man is now in charge and talking a good talk from the podium. The UK is hosting COP26 in just 3 weeks' time in Glasgow, and we believe that agriculture needs to have a voice there. We haven't actually got an awful lot in terms of formal events taking place for agriculture in Glasgow. We're going to certainly be there. Minette will be there, Stuart Roberts, our Deputy President, a number of the staff. We're going to be going to a number of industry and relevant events and trying to create a bit of a noise, but we've already decided to create a bit of a noise online. Go out and Google Countryside COP. Countryside COP, C-O-P. That's an event that we're running online, or at least we and our friends in the agricultural industry are hosting online. There's about 24 events now happening, side events, in a sort of an online discussion forum, which we're responsible for promoting it throughout next week. Some of the things are actually clearly happening live, even though they're online, but many of them are going to be accessible more or less at any time just by sort of clicking on the link. So do go and search for those terms, you may be pleasantly surprised to see how much is going on in different areas of agriculture, technology, or agricultural, particular sectors and so on, what they can all do. So back to those graphs. The left-hand bar is the combination of everything, carbon dioxide emissions and other greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture. About half of it is methane from ruminant livestock. It's something we can't get away from. If we want to have meat and dairy products, they do produce methane as part of their process for breaking down grasses. There are things we can do about it to make it more efficient and perhaps manage them down, but we're not going to be able to get rid of it automatically, not without a massive recourse to genetic engineering or something of the sort. Nitrous oxide. If we want to grow plants, if we want to have good grass, we need nitrogen in the soil, labile nitrogen. It can come from inorganic fertilizers, it can come from organic fertilizers, but soil microbes work on some of that nitrogen, and some of it comes out as the gas nitrous oxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So if we want food production, there is a greenhouse gas cost. Only 10% of our emissions are carbon dioxide. But what we can do, we believe, is productivity improvements, managing down greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture by about 25%. Nature-based solutions, farmland, carbon storage, about another 25% of the problem. It's a capability the agricultural sector is perhaps unique in having. We've got the land, so we can counterbalance those residual greenhouse gas emissions that we can't get rid of. And then we have the bioeconomy and clever new technologies which can engineer greenhouse gas removal from the atmosphere. This is supported by the international scientific community. It seems to be the strategy that everybody is building now. So a combination of both harnessing nature, a little bit of rewilding perhaps around the margins, but also clever new technologies, things like coupling bioenergy to carbon-negative processes, actively removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, putting it into geological storage under the North Sea, or turning it into clever new bio-based construction products. Example is just around you. These are bio-based construction products, all of these timber beams holding up the roof. And these things are here for 50 or 100 years. That's a carbon store. So let's use more natural products in our everyday lives and fewer, perhaps, fossil fuel products that we dig out of the ground. There's a little summary of this three-pillared approach again. I won't dwell on that, but it's essentially, manage down your emissions, new technologies, advances in energy efficiency and so on to bring down the emissions for agriculture, exercise farmland carbon storage to the maximum that we can, and then look at clever new engineered technologies to capture the remainder and bring everything into balance. And here's some of the sort of new technologies that we're starting to see coming into agriculture now. Robotic machines that are capable of weeding organically because they know exactly the position of every beet or vegetable crop in a field. Not sure we can do this quite yet with arable crops and so on, but wheat and oilseed rape and things like that. But certainly high-value vegetable cropping has significant potential to use autonomous vehicles to help farmers in what they can do and upskill the idea of agricultural labour. We're going to need robot technicians in agriculture in the near future, not just people who pick asparagus. And drones. I think there's some drones on display downstairs being increasingly used for all kinds of clever surveying work, monitoring farmers' fields, monitoring livestock, perhaps crop spraying, doing precision tasks. Identify an area of the crop that's got a rust disease in it or something. It's only over in that corner of the field. Program the drone to go and deal with it with very limited amounts of crop protection products. Electric vehicles for farms. Now, clever stuff that can be done. There's Stuart Roberts actually in the top left-hand corner with his current Nissan Leaf. I think there's one of them on display out in the car park there. Top right, JCB. Somebody mentioned them earlier. They are also looking at electric agricultural farm machinery and construction machinery. So we're starting to see that electric vehicle revolution just coming into our sector now. And we believe that things like that prototype tractor in the middle there from the Agco Fendt company, general purpose small tractor at the moment. There's a bit of a challenge still to electrify or find other fuels to run really big tractors, but lots of exciting technology coming our way to make us more efficient. Somebody was talking about transport as a problem. Here's a big policy ask that we want for the rural economy. Please don't leave us behind like you left us behind with the digital infrastructure. We need electric infrastructure, electric vehicle charging infrastructure that really reaches into the countryside. And my last slide. So our policy asks, across those three themes, number one, we've got to get that infrastructure that will support the uptake of new technologies and techniques that make farmers more efficient and productive. We need farmers to have access to carbon pricing, a carbon market which can be used to drive investment in capturing carbon in farmland. And then we need a strong domestic bioenergy supply chain and support for other renewable energy technologies so that farmers can really max out on these clever ways of displacing emissions and actually actively removing greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere. Thank you very much for your attention. Happy to take questions if there's time for anything of the sort.
We're 10 minutes behind, Susan. I'd like to thank both Jonathan and Trina for those two presentations. As I've explained, we try to pack a huge amount in, and every single presentation we've had to cut down on the time in order to have more presentations to make it as dense as possible. I apologise for cutting you short, but thank you both very much for your presentations. Thank you. Moving on to the business panel part of our day. First thing we're going to do is show a video from Andrew Griffiths, who is Government Minister for The UK Net Zero Business Champion is official title. Damien wrote it down. Damien's meant to do this, but I didn't write that down, so I had to check with Daniel what his title was. Anyway, it's a 5-minute video by Andrew Griffith, who's EMP for Arundel and the South Downs, who is our Net Zero Business Champion.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to have the chance to speak with you at COP East Hampshire in Alton today. Thank you to the East Hampshire District Council, Enterprise M3, the County Council, and to my colleague Damien Hines for organising this fantastic event. It's so encouraging to see so many businesses of all sizes putting sustainability front and centre. And your actions, whether the first or the final step on your net zero journey, will drive real and lasting change. By committing to ambitious climate targets, you're setting a shining example for your peers to follow. The local action groups presenting their recommendations today are a picture-perfect example of local groups and businesses working together to tackle this key policy challenge. And by harnessing the local knowledge of the community, you've come together and set out effective actions that everyone can take. I'm delighted to share that businesses and organisations in East Hampshire have an incredible track record on taking action to reduce their emissions. To give just a few examples, Green Tech South, an innovation cluster for clean growth, have provided support for small businesses in East Hampshire on reducing carbon emissions. They've worked with impressive companies like Power Quad, who've created an automated technology system designed to reduce energy bills. We all like that, by storing low-cost energy and using renewable energy sources. That's right at the heart of action on this event. The Sustainable Wedding Alliance have set a great example in their wedding industry. They themselves have switched to 100% renewable energy in their offices, and they're encouraging their clients in turn to think about the emissions from their events. And of course, in the Enterprise M3 LEP, you've got a fantastic source of support to underpin this all. Through the Growth Hub Net Zero Business Support Service launched last month, local businesses are being provided with free advice on reducing their emissions. It was the opportunity to work with business like this, which is why I was so delighted to be appointed by the Prime Minister as the UK Net Zero Business Champion last year. And over that period, I've had the opportunity to speak to so many British businesses, large and small, to hear the tremendous steps that are being taken towards a net zero world. And that's strengthened my belief that the actions of business will be central to the transition to a low carbon economy. And that's going to in turn drive jobs and growth within the UK. This has only strengthened my belief that the actions of business will be central to the country's transition to the low carbon economy, and that this will drive jobs and growth within the UK, but also open up large and attractive sectors of the new global economy in which businesses based in the UK can take significant market shares. So in this year, and almost in this month, when the UK hosts both the G7 and COP26, businesses have a historic opportunity to make real and lasting change happen, because long after the tables and chairs and flags of the climate summit have cleared away, it is business that will be central to this agenda. The government, for its part, has demonstrated global leadership by baking a 2050 net zero target into law. That's the very highest form of commitment any government can make. As part of our contribution to the Paris Agreement, we've also committed to reduce our emissions as a country by at least 68% by 2035. And businesses can play a key role in how we achieve that and participate in the UK's green business revolution. If you're starting out on your net zero journey, and I'm sure many of you are, events like today and the resources provided by the Enterprise M3 are an excellent place to start. I'm all about practical actions, and there's three things that all of us can do. First, if you haven't already, make a pledge. Sign up to something like the Race to Zero campaign, and you can find all the details by visiting the new UK Business Climate Hub at, funnily enough, businessclimatehub.org/UK. In a space that's often full of complicated and different competing environmental standards, that is the kite mark that we would like all businesses to adopt, and you should have the real confidence that that's backed by the UK government as well as by the United Nations. Second, please work across the whole of your supply chain to show them what you're planning on doing and find out what they can do. We are all each other's keeper on the climate agenda. We're all each other's customer or supplier, and if we all move together at the same time, the costs of making that move are transformationally lower, and we can all go much, much faster. Individual customers are becoming more discerning and making more sustainable choices, and you have the chance to lead the pack by demonstrating your carbon cutting credentials. And then thirdly, and finally, please tell everyone, myself, Damien, your customers, what you're doing so that we can champion that. My experience talking to businesses every single day is that there is a huge appetite to make the change, and the biggest thing that people want and businesses want is information, to share stories of what has and hasn't worked and how others have been on that journey. So to conclude, we've got a huge task ahead of us, but also a huge opportunity. With COP26 now just days away, I'd like to thank you all for what you're doing, wish you well, and look forward to hearing your success on your journey to net zero in the future. Thank you.
So the last part of our day today is going to be a business discussion, which is going to be chaired by David Hutchinson from Green Tech South, with some panellists. But first of all, we're going to have Jenny Pell behind me from M3LEP, who's going to talk about the policy context and the ROI opportunity, and that'll then seamlessly lead on to the panel discussion. And Jenny, you're going to take part now as well, aren't you? Yes. Yes, she said yes. Good, fantastic. So Jenny, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you for staying for this last session. We're on the home straight, as you said. So my name is Jenny Pell. I work for Enterprise M3 Local Enterprise Partnership, which you can see up there. For those that you don't know, the Local Enterprise Partnership is a public-private partnership funded by government that we are leading on local economic development priorities around innovation, infrastructure, skills and business support. And my role, quite lucky role really, I lead on all our clean growth activities. So that is embedding the low carbon and net zero approach to everything we do within economic development, because whilst we want growth in the EM3 area, definitely not at all costs. So we are in the process of, working out in our activities of how we achieve this. So I think from today, it's really apparent, and as has just been said, that we all have a role to play in this. And actually the business sector has a key role. Now, whether that's businesses working in the innovation space that are going to create the technology, the products, the services in order to meet net zero, as well as actually every business and their sort of journey to decarbonise and become more sustainable and reach net zero. So we sort of say, well, why are we interested in this at the LEP? What are the drivers for this activity? And actually for us, I think the business resilience, so actually the changes, mitigating, adapting to the climate change impacts. It is about cutting costs, whether that's through energy efficiency, and at the moment with all the things with energy, increasingly important. It's about talent. I think we've heard from young people today about companies and businesses that they want to work for, and actually recruiting the right people will be key. Around reputation and customer experience, again, we're all consumers, so we're all customers, and actually that groundswell is we need to help companies develop the products and services that our customers want, and to kind of push them into the kind of low carbon opportunities, low carbon products. And finally, actually this is a massive opportunity, as just was said. This is a big transition. There's going to be lots of jobs and skills, business opportunities, so we want to make sure our businesses in the EM3 area, we already have a specialism in the low carbon sector. We want to make sure that the businesses here really take advantage and kind of reap the benefits of this big opportunity. But we also know that each business is different. So we have a range of businesses, and how do you approach the decarbonisation and the net zero angle for all businesses? And as was said there, around the kind of the business support. And I think the key thing we want to say is around knowing your business, and it's actually looking at your business through that decarbonisation and sustainability angle. And what we're going to speak about here is actually the support that is available to help you make those first steps. Because once you know your business, where your energy needs are, where you can become sustainable, you can start to really, really target where to act and how to act. And what we want to kind of hopefully, I hope, if this works, get across today, a bit of inspiration around, if that's the area you want to act in, what is the support that is around? Do you need to focus on your energy consumption? Do you need to focus on your transport? Is it packaging? It's a vast area. So, moving on. So yes, so just very, very briefly, these are just some of the slides, some of the businesses, and organisations that can help, and some of you may have spoken to us downstairs. As was just previously said, the government have launched the Together for Our Planet, the SME Climate Hub, where they're getting businesses to pledge to reduce emissions by half by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050, and there are resources online to help with that. But in addition, at the LEP, we want to enable everybody to be a bit handheld, I guess, through this process. It's not just an online offer. And so, as you can see up there, we have our Growth Hub, which are business advisors that you can contact, and we will plug you into the right areas of support. We have here and representatives, so Green Tech South, so David here, who leads on Green Tech South, is a great cluster towards the south of Hampshire, which can provide not only grants, energy efficiency audits, but also a fantastic network and peer support in businesses wanting to take that first journey. And we're also really pleased that we have Locase, who are also downstairs, a new funded programme that provides a needs assessment for business to go and talk to them about what your needs are, and then can provide energy efficiency measure grants and also business development grants for those companies in the low carbon sector. So overall, what I really, really want to get across, I guess, is that the LEP is business focused, but we are net zero focused, and we want to do everything to sort of support our businesses to make that move over. So with no further ado, there we go. I'm going to hand over to David Hutchinson from the University of Portsmouth and the Green Tech South organisation, and we're going to run a little panel session, a bit interactive, so we'd welcome any comments and questions. So we will see how this goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. This is a bit new to me, having this thing on my head. I feel like I should do a song and a dance, but we've got a couple of handheld mics there as well. So yes, hello everyone. I think you all deserve an award or something yourselves for being here for this long. But I think what I'd love to do is, in the limited time we've got, is just leave you with some inspiration, if at all possible. So, every business is different, and we have been trying to support businesses for about 10 years, and 10 years ago it was about a transition to a low carbon economy, and now it's net zero or even climate positive or whatever the term might be, but ultimately it's about making that transition as quickly as possible, and we know we've not been going quick enough, but there seems to be momentum that's gathering. But what we do have, so the large corporates in this world are doing their bit, and I'm sure could do more, and many of them, you can see their logos associated with COP. But as we know, the economy of this country is driven mostly by small and medium-sized enterprises, and even then, it's the ones that are really quite small that do most of the driving of the economy. And so I've brought along some shining examples of businesses that are innovating and trying to do their bit, either through innovation or other such measures. And I think I'd just like to introduce them, really. So should we start at that end? This is Phil. Do you want to say who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Hello, everyone. My name is Phil. My team are called AppSolar, which is a tech startup based in Southampton Science Park. And we were established about this time last year, so during the thick of the pandemic. So without the support from this wonderful society, I would like to call, we won't be here today. So because of the pandemic, on top of which we have the difficulty of having a startup. So really wonderful to be here today to share the experience.
So thanks, Phil. Phil's company, so it's amazing they've managed to, they've set up during this difficult time. But they're, you know, really clever minds that came out of a university and spin out this company, and it's like all this stuff I don't understand, these algorithms, but basically they work with, for example, Portsmouth City Council now, and you can type your website, your postcode into a box on Portsmouth City Council's website, and it'll tell you if your roof is suitable for solar panels. It'll tell you how much you might earn, how much it might cost you, and then it links directly into a framework of suppliers that Portsmouth City Council have. That means you can then really easily go and find a trusted supplier to fit the solar panels if you decide that that's for you. But yeah, brilliant tech, and you know, glad to support them. Sarah, do you want to?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Sarah Keel, and my business is called Baby Cup. It does what it says on the tin. We make cups for babies, and we manufacture fairly close to here in Basingstoke, so not all that far away. And we've been going for about 10 years now, and along that journey we have made various changes to business and our manufacturing process, which hopefully have impacted on our environmental footprint in a positive way, and also have had a financial benefit to make the business able to get through various challenges. So it's sort of financial and environmental improvements, I would say. We've also benefited from the support of...
We don't need to keep...
No, but I would like to say that we had a grant which was absolutely brilliant. So definitely worth exploring what financial support is available through the Growth Hub, because we had financial help, and we also had just general knowledge and expertise help and encouragement, and that was through Green Tech and the Growth Hub itself.
Thank you. And then we have Paul.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Paul Cole. I'm from the company called PowerQuad that we co-founded back in 2018. We're an award-winning engineering company. We provide both software tools and hardware tools to businesses to help them on their decarbonising journey. So we typically get brought on board where they're struggling to identify what to do and how to achieve their goals, but sometimes not quite knowing what their goals need to be. Through using technology, they're able to map that goal and then use our battery storage technology to monitor that and then prove that onto their supply chains, winning new contracts and then keeping their customers who they've already got on side.
Thank you. And why... So 3 very different businesses, and all businesses are different. Of course they are. I don't think there's going to be a blueprint or a single silver bullet for everything, and so, you know, but why for each of you and for you are you so passionate about both your products but also making sure that your product, you know, it's not just something that is another thing to buy, but you know, you're trying your best to, where appropriate, kind of think about, you know, your impact on society or the environment or whatever it might be. You know, what drives you in that respect? You know, why have you ended up with kind of more socially responsible products as well as trying to run businesses?
I'll go first on that.
Anyone? You've got a microphone.
To answer that, I mean, thinking about personally, I can go back to when I was at secondary school, and back then it was all about acid rain. You know, we were taught in geography, you know, the damage that we're doing to the environment then, and what the legislation that was coming back in the UK in the 50s, and it just ingrains in you as a child what that means. Coming through into engineering, you are taught as an engineer to create products sustainably. You know, we're in the UK particularly, we can't manufacture products that you just then throw away. We've not been able to do that for years. We're not a mass manufacturing country at all. So that is inherent in the training going forward. And as an engineer, you're always looking to solve problems. What problems can you solve and ultimately make the world a better place for the next generation and the people around you? So they're the key elements that come into how you approach problems as an engineer and seeing that go forward. And having the opportunity with PowerQuad and the support of you know, David and Jenny and the LEPs in allowing that to come through it, particularly at this crucial time on climate change and the emergency, it's a very rewarding time to be in. It's hard, it's difficult as an engineer, but it is a very rewarding time. So, yeah.
Sarah, you look like you just need a microphone, but you look like you might have an answer.
Hello
Thank
there.
you, Paul.
When Baby Cup was first born, one of the key reasons for creating the product was to have a health impact. So the product is in itself very simple. The easiest description is it looks like a shot glass. So imagine a shot glass for babies, but obviously this is with water or milk in it. I'm not encouraging, obviously, vodka. But imagine this very small product. The reason it came into being is through looking into what was the healthiest way for a baby and young child to learn how to drink. And it turns out it's an open cup. Now, to make an open cup doable, you need it to be the right size for the user. The user is really small, so you need to make a really small cup. So hence the comparison in proportions in that it looks very much shot glass sized. So there was a health benefit. So the impact on society that I wanted was this health benefit. But also I wanted to improve on my own experience of a parent where I had amassed this cupboard full of useless cups. I had bought every one I could find and none of them seemed to do the job. And I just had this cupboard overflowing with, it was so wasteful. It took up space, it cost me money, and actually most of them were unusable. So I wanted to solve that problem as well. It just seemed like I'd had this sort of pointless journey of buying all these products. So if I could make something that had a health impact, also saved money and saved on materials and cupboard space, then I was going to be happy. So Baby Cup did solve all those problems. So when we first launched, I think without really thinking about it as an environmental impact, there was an environmental impact, but I hadn't really considered it in that way. So there was an environmental positive, but without it being on purpose, I suppose. Several years down the line, we then looked at how do we make business more efficient. We were manufacturing in the UK, is what we'd done from the very start, even though we'd been warned off that by many people. You'll never survive, don't manufacture in the UK, you should manufacture in China, you can make it much more cheaply. But I wanted to be able to go to the factory and know that what I said the product was made from was truly what it was made from because I could see it happening. So I wanted that sort of control and I wanted that sort of mark of quality that I felt came with manufacturing in the UK. But we needed to improve our manufacturing processes, and I suppose that's where improving our carbon footprint really started to come into the picture. So we invested in new tooling, which made our manufacturing process more efficient. We had less wastage, we had less reject product. So there was already, sort of phase 2 from that initial launch. Phase 2 of the new tooling gave us that improvement, and we couldn't be net zero. We manufacture something, we know that we will always have an impact, but how do we mitigate that? So we mitigated it with improved tooling, and then jump forward to phase 3. Sorry, this is a long answer, but my impact on society. The product is made of plastic. Plastic is, demonized. This is a dreadful, dreadful thing to use, but actually it's not always a dreadful material. It doesn't mean it has a bigger manufacturing footprint than cornstarch or bamboo. It doesn't have to be. It depends on how you're using it, and it depends on the end of life of the product as well. So I feel that plastic's been given quite a bad reputation, and I want to pull that back a bit and say it depends what you as a manufacturer and as a consumer do with it. So for phase 3, what we did was make our already recyclable product. We made it with the help of the Growth Hub, with Green Tech, with the LEP. We made it biodegradable. So that has taken our plastic product onto a new level. And whilst it's not net zero, we do have we have a manufacturing process. We're really, really pleased that what happens at the end of the life of our product means that it's not sitting in landfill. It's not going to be quite literally a blot on the landscape. So yeah, there are sort of 3 phases and where we're at now.
Thank you. And I mean, we were talking about this earlier on in the week, but I think what struck me was just the detail with which you've gone to work out the best place for you as a company and your product now. And that's not to say, I mean, certainly, you know, we have some incredible innovators, and it might be there's another SME at some point that comes up with, you know, a suitable alternative material, but right now it doesn't exist. But, and I think that's where, you know, we have these amazing ecosystems of brilliant, innovative companies that, you know, are learning off each other and exchanging ideas and information as well. We'll have to stop, I'm sure, soon, but somebody will tell me. But yeah, you're all running businesses. You know, these are not charities. You're trying to run businesses, and actually small businesses, and you started 12 months ago. Now, for a long time, there's been an assumption that you can either have economic growth or you can be environmentally friendly, but you can't do the two together. You know, you often see pictures of scales, and it's like one or the other, but you can't do both. Do you feel that that is the case, or do you feel actually things are changing, or actually has that never been the case for you? Maybe Phil, have you got a thought there? 'Cause
I don't have that lengthy experience in terms of allowing me to compare my growth with the wide industries. But for me, I don't agree with that. I think you can have both, because what we are trying to do is not profit-driven. What we are trying to do is how our data technology can add value to other people. So now the whole society is looking to the right direction, try to be more sustainable and try to be more environmentally friendly, and how our data, our technology can help people to either accelerate the speed to be more sustainable, and how to help them finding out suitable opportunities. So my co-founders kept telling me that you can't have a margin to have you can't have a mission without margin. I think that's true. But I think with the whole society heading to the right direction, and with a really solid technology, you can have both a financial profit and also a business growth.
Thank you, Phil. Any other thoughts on that particular?
Actually, for us, going biodegradable, so part 3 of our journey so far, it hasn't increased our costs significantly, probably half a pence on each cup. So it's really not very much. I think what took more than the money was working out how to do it. You know, that was the lengthy part. We didn't know how, what do I use? A series of fortunate events and meeting the right people and discovering that there were options and ways of doing it. So, you know, I'm very grateful that I've been able to get to this position. But I'd say it was more the know-how than the financial cost.
Thanks.
So yeah, I'll just quickly add a couple of things to that point. For businesses, particularly small businesses, even corporations, you're hearing of new financial methods that they're putting in place internally as to how they manage their purchases. I heard the other day that a large corporation was saying, well, if you're buying, let's say you were buying a higher carbon product than a lower carbon product because it was cheaper, and your 3-year return, for example, was within the standard procedures for the business, there was an add-on cost. And that cost was collected, and they would then use that to invest in low carbon technologies that had a higher element, so they're reducing their financial risk. And that's what it would come down to you as a business. Look at the political, environmental, the social, economic aspects of your growth. What do your customers want? Do your customers want you to be greener? If they do, do it. If they don't, you're not really going to be in existence because you're not talking to your right customers, I would guess. Growth can come almost certainly from your investment in low carbon technologies. Customers are keen to, particularly consumers, keen to see those businesses that are environmentally friendly, who are investing correctly, not quite just offsetting. Planting trees sometimes isn't the most attractive element against someone who's burning fuel internally, for example. Customers will find this out, and once they found that out, you've lost your business within a fortnight. So really consider what your industry is, what the marketplace is doing, and what your customers think. But don't be frightened to think how you're going to change your internal accountancy procedures and processes to allow your business to grow. Think of it in a 5, 8, 10-year plan, but what you need to put in place, whether you're playing with your balance sheet, your profit and loss, but think about what that can mean in accountancy terms going forward. And it may be you, if you're a business owner, you might have to change your accountant entirely in order to meet your own objectives and goals, but be open to making that decision.
So, looks like we're about to get told to shut up. So, I think hopefully that's just a little window into, you know, 3 very different companies, but, you know, there's a whole ecosystem. There's about 400 businesses, I think, that that belong to Green Tech South, and it's free to join. But there's just this amazing innovation ecosystem out there with businesses like these that are doing some incredible stuff, inventing some new incredible products, but also those that are, you know, doing what they can with energy efficiency. And so, you know, by all means, come and grab some of us afterwards or hit one of the websites or whatever, but I'm sure we can find a way to support people that want to be supported. But yeah, I better stop.
I'd like to say thank you to David, Jenny, Paul, Sarah and Phil for your time. That was fascinating. Thank you very much. So the last thing I have to do is to wrap this all up and to say thank you to a huge number of people who've been involved in making this event possible today. It's been an amazing team effort. We've obviously tried to cram in a huge amount of detail in today, so thank you all for staying. So I'm going to go through a list of thank yous. Obviously Damien's not here, he would have said this otherwise, so I will start by thanking him and his team who've done a huge chunk of work to put this together. The same is true for the EHDC team, Jill Neller, Will Parsons who's here, Jane Devlin, Georgia Loud and Kay Ponton outside. It was a fantastic team effort by EHDC and Damien's team to put this event on, and I think we will be very proud and pleased with what we've done. I'd obviously like to thank all the exhibitors downstairs, those who brought their electric cars, those who brought their electric bikes. Thank the 40 people in the action groups for their time and the effort, particularly the 3 chairs, Keith Hopper, Mark Penfold, Sir David Normington. The fantastic school children we had up on stage, clearly they've all got a great deal to say. We would try to give them time to express what they were doing. To the different panels we've had up today, for Trina Plowright and Jonathan Skurlock from the NFU, to Andrew Lee, Leah Coney, and again Jane Devlin from EHDC, and the business panel we've had. And finally, I'd like to say thank you very much to Tom and his team here at the Maltings, including David, who's been running the AV so well today. I think the AVs worked perfectly, which I'm mightily relieved. I was just worried we were going to have technical problems. And obviously we've had lots of local media here today. We've had the Herald, the Post, the Shine Radio, the Wey Valley, BBC South. There's been lots of coverage. All of it's going to be on the BBC website. So thank you all, those hardy people who stayed to the end. Thank you very much. On behalf of EHDC and Damien Hines MP, thank you for coming.